Because of the difficult life, Ha-won had to do odd jobs. Today, she told the children the fairy tale of Cinderella. After finishing the story, Haiji seemed unhappy. The real-life Cinderellas are still busy making money. Moreover, the modern-day princes are all playboys. On her way to deliver pizza, Ha-won saw a guy fighting with someone else to snatch the bag from that person's hand. She chased after him. After a long distance, Ha-won caught up with the man. But when she arrived, she discovered that he was actually doing something good. Ha-won asked the grocery store owner for the items that were about to expire to take home to eat. Upon returning home, she casually greeted everyone and then was about to go upstairs. Suk-young called her back to remind her to wash the dishes cleaner next time, while Yuna asked if she had brought her clothes back. Upon learning that Ha-won forgot to bring back Yuna's clothes, she just called her useless and disposable. Suk-young even said she was as useless as her late mother. Ha-won could only walk quickly upstairs. She had to struggle to earn money everywhere to save up enough 4 million won for her university tuition fee. These are Chairman Kang's 3 grandchildren. They drove supercars back to their grandfather's mansion. As soon as they arrived, all 3 received an invitation from Chairman Kang. Ji-woon left on his own initiative. Hyun-min agreed to attend his grandfather's wedding. He even promised to give him a surprise wedding gift. Chairman Kang's secretary recalls the first time he brought Ji-woon home. Hyun-min and Ji-woon never liked each other. As soon as they met, they were ready to start punching each other. After being introduced as brothers, Hyun-min remains very skeptical. Hyun-min said if his uncle doesn't get married, how could he have children? Then he reminded the secretary to double-check thoroughly, lest they be deceived. Hyun-min blames his grandfather for being too curious in bringing his grandson back. Not long ago, he had just picked up a street singer. Now it is Ji-woon's turn. Then he turned around and walked away. After learning that none of his grandchildren participated in his wedding, Chairman Kang was very disappointed. He needs to find a successor for the Hanun group while his 3 grandchildren are still very young. The eldest grandchild is Ji-woon. He is very passionate about cars. When he saw a guy bullying his colleague, he took his supercar and rammed it straight into the guy's car. He would double the number of cars damaged in the collision. But the car owner had to apologize and will never come back here with that arrogant attitude again. This boy is Seo-woo. He is very passionate about singing and is also a famous idol. This is Hyun-min. Although handsome, he is extremely despicable. He always deceives others' feelings. However, the girls who were abandoned by him all received a car gift from Hyun-min. So, even though they were abandoned, they were still very happy. That evening, Hyun-min went to the bar with his friends. He lamented that his new grandmother is only as old as his mother. He wasn't happy at all. His friend said things must be very complicated. Hyun-min plans to disrupt the wedding ceremony. He said he would escort the first girl through the door to attend the wedding ceremony. Hyun-min did not expect that the person walking through the door would be a fangirl. His friend laughed and joked happily. Ha-won delivers the goods to customers but faces difficulties. They made a note to let the beautiful girl deliver. Seeing that they were too much, Hyun-min immediately appeared. He hadn't even had a chance to do anything yet when Ha-won had already taken out a few guys. He was completely astonished. Hyun-min found Ha-won to be somewhat interesting as well. He had never seen a girl as strong and capable as her before. Hyun-min immediately went after her. At this time, Suk-young and Yuna were at home checking exam scores. But Yuna had not been accepted into any university. Suk-young was very disappointed in her daughter. At that moment, Ha-won came home from work. She borrowed the computer to check her own exam scores. Yuna and Suk-young didn't believe that she could get into university. They told her she was useless. But when they checked the results, Ha-won had in fact been accepted into university. Ha-won was very happy, but Suk-young and Yuna were displeased. Yuna said she was poor and had no money to go to school. Ha-won replied that she had saved enough money to pay the first round of tuition. After going to school, she will work part-time to pay the rest. Over here, the chairman went to Butler Kim's house but looked everywhere but still couldn't find him. Butler Kim is being assaulted from the ceiling. Butler Kim has resigned. The chairman was very upset because another person resigned. The next day while Ha-won was going to work, a guy suddenly appeared. He is Hyun-min. He bought an ice cream and gave her one. Here Hyun-min asked Ha-won a favor. Only 3 hours to exchange for 2 million won. She refused directly. Ha-won believes that people with real money will never be that stupid. Hyun-min suddenly placed money on the cashier counter. She directly agreed. She asked for his phone number. Hyun-min writes his phone number on Ha-won's hand. Money can buy everything. After negotiations, Hyun-min left. Ji-woon went to work. When he knew his colleagues hadn't had dinner yet, he went to Ha-won's store to buy food for everyone. When paying, Ji-woon realized he forgot to bring money, so he went back to work to get it. At the door, he accidentally heard his colleagues say that he was now rich, so he might cut off his relationship with them. Ji-woon heard that and quietly left. Ha-won reheated the food. She accidentally saw him pass by, so she chased after him to get money to buy things earlier. He said he would come back tomorrow to pay, but she didn't believe that. Ji-woon took the watch as a pledge, but Ha-won didn't take it and left. Ha-won came home from work when it was late. Every time she misses her mother, she takes out the photo to look at it and then cries. She texted her father even though he never responded to her messages. The next morning Ha-won goes to visit her mother. When she got there, she discovered that her mother's urn was missing. When I asked the manager, he found out that she hadn't paid for 5 years, so they put her mother's skeleton in storage. Ha-won doesn't accept it, but she hasn't paid the fee for 5 years, so they have to do it. Ji-woon is also there. He yelled at the two of them to be quiet and not bother anyone else. It turns out he also came here to visit his deceased mother. When Ji-woon went out, he saw Ha-won kneeling down and begging the manager to return her mother's remains to their original place. Ha-won held in her hand her mother's favorite bouquet of flowers. She remembered when her mother was still alive, she and her mother often hugged each other very happily. But now she can only hold the bouquet of flowers and smell in the car watching the rain. Ha-won tried to go to college because that was her mother's wish before she passed away. But now she can't go to school because the debt from her family is too large. She apologized to her mother very much for not being able to fulfill her wish. The next night Ha-won and Hyun-min arrived at the appointed location. What surprised Ha-won was that Hyun-min wanted her to pretend to be his fiancée for 3 hours. Notice the regret on Ha-won's face. Hyun-min lies that his grandfather is seriously ill. He hoped that before he died, he could see him engaged. Hyun-min turned around and looked pitiful. Ha-won saw that and immediately went to comfort her. Just like that, Hyun-min tricked this kind girl. Getting into the car, Hyun-min discovered that this girl was extremely special. Not only was she not interested in his handsome face, she even raised her fist to protect herself when she saw his hand on her shoulder, then sat somewhere else. The luxury car went somewhere. Hyun-min appeared and brought a girl with him. The reporter started taking photos to report the news. Hyun-min leads Ha-won to a secret basement. This place has beautiful high heels and precious jewelry. Ha-won immediately asked what these things were. Hyun-min bluntly replied that she was his fiancée now, so just enjoy it. At that moment, a knock on the door rang out. As soon as Hyun-min opened the door, he saw the girl who secretly liked him for a long time. He then conveniently closed the door. The girl asked Hyun-min who was in the room. Hyun-min answered lightly that she was not familiar with it. He also asked the girl if she didn't get tired of doing crazy things like that all day. Ha-won entered the dressing room without noticing Seo-woo was also sitting in the room listening to music. Seo-woo was afraid that he would be exposed, so he mistakenly took Ha-won's phone. After changing clothes, Ha-won also took Seo-woo's phone by mistake. She slowly walked out. The professional makeup team began to apply her makeup. Ha-won has transformed into a completely different person. Hyun-min also personally put on a pair of beautiful high heels for her. The chairman's marriage ceremony begins. He and his wife walked out. At the same time, the nephew also brought his nephew over. Hyun-min immediately stole his grandfather's lens. The guests all turned their eyes to the young birds. Seeing that, the chairman became even more angry. At this time, Ha-won discovered that she had been deceived. It turned out that Hyun-min's grandfather was not seriously ill. Ha-won was angry and wanted to leave, but Hyun-min forcibly picked her up. There was no other way for Ha-won to rush and had to follow the spear. Hyun-min tells his grandfather that the wedding gift he specially prepared for him is his fiancée. The chairman's new wife quickly spoke up and asked whose family Ha-won was. Ha-won honestly replied that she was in her final year at Yangshan Girls High School. Ha-won apologized to the chairman even more for acting inappropriately at the public wedding. She also asked Hyun-min to apologize to her grandfather, but he refused. Ha-won used a punch to force him to kneel down and apologize to him. Everyone was surprised by this scene. Ha-won doesn't want to be taken advantage of anymore. She was angry and wanted to go back home. Hyun-min silently showed that her 3 hours of work were not over yet. Ha-won has no other choice. She had to bow her head and continue acting with Hyun-min. Hyun-min deliberately pretended to be close to Ha-won. He cruelly hurt the heart of the girl who secretly loved him for 10 years. He made Hae-ji cry. At this moment Ji-woon suddenly appeared. He does not hesitate to hurt others to protect Hae-ji. Ji-woon recognizes Ha-won as the girl who works at the grocery store. He also said she only came here for money. He then threw a pile of money on the ground in front of her. Hyun-min also got angry when he saw that. He yells at Ji-woon not to treat his woman like that. Ha-won chases after Ji-woon and says she knows they can throw this money away easily like many others can't. She warned Ji-woon that if he dared to touch her again, he would surely die. After what he went through, Ha-won was very angry. She vented all the bad things that happened today on Hyun-min. She returned him all the items he bought for her. Even her shoes were thrown away because she felt they were unlucky. Because Ha-won was in a hurry to break off her relationship with Hyun-min, she even forgot to take her salary. However, Hyunmin could not have imagined that his grandfather's act of disrupting the wedding would cause him to suffer serious consequences. He found him a real fiancé and told him to get married for the sake of the family. Who would have thought that Hyunmin was completely fearless? I'm already miserable. He himself has hundreds of ways to ruin such marriages. Meanwhile, the chairman was recalling what happened yesterday. He liked Ha-won quite a bit, so he asked Jun-sung to investigate her home. Everything that happened during the wedding very quickly came to the forefront of search. Everyone is very curious about who Hyunmin's fiancé is. The girl rumored to be the granddaughter-in-law of Han Un Group is actually a pitiful girl. She lost her mother when she was young and now lives with Soo-kyung. Ha-won borrowed money from Soo-kyung to pay for school. Not only did she not lend her money, she also scolded her severely. Ha-won had to work part-time at a small store, but with her small salary, she cannot afford to pay tuition. Ha-won consoled himself that if he didn't study this year, he would study again next year. As long as she saves a little more, she will soon have enough money to pay for school. After learning about Ha-won's difficult situation, Chairman Kong also felt moved. He sent someone to find her. Ha-won didn't expect Grandpa Kong to be such a funny person. His attitude made her feel less stressed. This time, Chairman Kong wants Ha-won to move in with his 3 grandsons. He wanted her to teach his 3 grandchildren to become decent people. In addition, he will assign her a few other tasks. Working time is 3 months. If Ha-won agrees, President Kong will pay the entire tuition fee for her. This will completely change Ha-won's life. Ha-won asked the chairman to give her some time to think. On the day of the blind date, Hyunmin met an extremely dignified young lady. The rogue Hyunmin said he prefers beautiful, sexy girls. Next, to show his affection, Hyunmin raised his arms to hug the girl who had just passed by. But I didn't expect it to be Hazy. Hyunmin was extremely sad, but because he wanted the object of his affection to give up, he kissed her in front of everyone. Miss Tien Kim felt very confused about this action and then mocked him for being too arrogant. It's true that paying attention immediately is not as good as seeing. After finishing the matter, Hyunmin immediately let go of Hazy, gently apologized and then cruelly left. She chased after him and asked what she was in Hyunmin's eyes. He said he only saw her as a childhood friend. Hazy realizes Hyunmin has changed too much. He also said that after 10 years everyone has to change, but she still believes he still keeps their memories. When Hyunmin was about to leave, someone came to give him a shirt. At first he asked what shirt it was, but when he realized it was Ha-won's shirt, he accepted it and got in the car to go home. At this time, Ha-won went to the hotel to look for his shirt but was not allowed inside because he was not on duty. Seeing that, Ji-woon couldn't ignore it so he helped her, but the janitor said he didn't see any shirt like that. Outside, she thanked him for helping her, but Ji-woon sarcastically told her to call Hyunmin to buy something else for her. Don't you just want to receive alms? After hearing those words, Ha-won beat him with a knife. She said that people like him who treat girls like trash are bastards. After speaking, she turned and walked straight. She tried to call her phone number but no one picked up the phone while the bus driver was holding her phone while performing her singing. After singing, he picked up his phone but realized it wasn't his phone. He called his number but it was turned off. At that moment, his phone ran out of battery. Ha-won was very sad because he might not be able to find his phone again. Meanwhile, Yuna is selling cosmetics. She is also confident that she will be famous for these fake cosmetics. But when Ha-won returned, the reporter recognized her as the girl who accompanied Hyunmin at the marriage ceremony. After hearing the news, the mother was so shocked that she quickly chased the reporter outside. Yuna questioned Ha-won if this was true, but Ha-won said things were not as they thought. But because of jealousy, they kicked Ha-won out of the house. Ha-won said this is his house, but Yuna has never considered her family. That night, Hyunmin returned and put Ha-won's shirt on the chair while he lay on the bed, remembering the morning meeting with Haiji. Not knowing what to think, he pulled out his childhood photo to look at it. While working part-time at a movie theater, a colleague invited Ha-won to watch a movie because there were no customers at that theater. While watching together, her friend had something to do so she left first. Unexpectedly, the person sitting next to her was Ji-woon. He looked at Ha-won who was dozing. When she woke up, she was startled and confused. What was more shocking was that he wanted 10,000 won for her shoulder but she said she only had 5,000 won. He said there was no need, but his stomach growled again. Instead, she took him out to eat instant noodles. She said that one day he threw money away for fun, the next day he took it back. She even planned to take the noodles and not let him eat anymore. Then the chairman came to see Ji-woon and wanted him to return to the villa. But he said he would never return there and just wanted to return to life as before. He threatened that everything he owned would disappear if he did not listen to him. Ji-woon was not afraid of this threat and turned away. Meanwhile, Seo-woo also called Ha-won and said her phone kept ringing with text messages. She read the phone code so Seo-woo could open it and read it for her, but she didn't expect it to be a message from her sister telling her to get out of the house. But Seo-woo didn't have the heart to tell her, so he said it was her sister's message telling her to come home quickly. Then the two met to return the phone. The next morning when Ha-won went to school, she was surrounded by asking if she was engaged to President Kang's nephew. While she didn't know what to do, Hyunmin arrived to rescue her. He thought he was cool, but she felt very upset and wanted him to explain that this was just a misunderstanding. Seeing her attitude like that, Hyunmin called someone and said to remove all articles related to her immediately. At that time, Ji-woon returned to work, not expecting that his close brother would chase him away. I didn't understand anything, but I smiled and said I'll come next time. A person ran up and told him not to come here anymore because he had accepted the president's request and promised not to know him. Even though Ji-woon was heartbroken after listening, he still smiled and said he was okay. Jun-sung came to find Ji-woon. He had to admit that the chairman's power was too formidable. He will do anything to bring him home even if it means hurting others. One day Ha-won received news that her father had returned, which made her extremely happy. Before going home, she suddenly received a call from the church saying her father had taken away the jar for her mother's remains. Ha-won was extremely confused. After returning home, she hurriedly asked him if dad had taken away the jar for mom's remains. She went up to the small room upstairs and saw the bone jar sitting on the ground, picked it up, then walked to her father and finally couldn't bear it and expressed her resentment. How could you do that? They said you've never paid the church fee before. Now I owe 5 million won and I've paid back 4 million. Dad just needs to pay the rest and he can take care of mom. But he shouted that why should he give such a large amount of money to the dead. Hearing that, Suk-young pretended to help Ha-won, but she didn't treat her like family at all, and forced her to stay in the upstairs room without even giving her $1 for tuition. She even threw away all the things in the room and then turned around and said she had nothing to do with it. Ha-won questioned Suk-young because there was also a photo of his mother in it. So her father turned her off and said she was not his child but another guy's child. After hearing this, Suk-young and her sister were very happy. Ha-won hugged the urn so her mother's bones walked alone in her lips, knowing she couldn't go back to that house again. At that moment the phone rang and it was my grandfather. Her despair suddenly found a chance to live on. Now she has nowhere to go so she accepts his invitation. At that time, Jun-sung suddenly covered her with an umbrella and the 3 other guys also stepped out from 3 different directions, approaching, truly the aura of the female lead. After Ha-won was taken back to the villa with the jar for her mother's remains by Jun-sung, the secretary took Ha-won into the hot bathtub to ease her illness. At this moment, still with a blank expression and a mischievous smile, thinking about the bitter scolding from her father, Ha-won tiredly shook her head to let it go. Because the mental shock she received was too great to bear, she chose to soak in the water. Meanwhile, the temple butler and secretary came out to announce to the chairman's 3 particularly destructive nephews that from today she will live with everyone in this villa. In particular, he intentionally reminded Hyunmin that love is not allowed here. The 3 grandchildren, Hyunmin, Seo-woo and Ji-woon, were all startled and jumped up. What? She's going to live here? Really, why is that so crazy? Then, the butler was about to explain their relationship when Hyunmin was scared and ran to the secretary and pulled him inside to stop him from speaking. What are you planning on doing? You told us not to date her. Think carefully, wouldn't it be safer for them to believe she was my fiancé? Look at them, don't you know they would go crazy for any girl? You can't joke with them. The butler is still determined with his opinion, so go tell everyone the truth. After taking a shower, an ungainly gurgling sound rang out from her stomach. While clumsily mixing food in the kitchen, he was discovered by the maid. Ha-won was scared and confused, then she quickly took her down to an old house, mistakenly thinking that she was coming here to work as a new maid. Because Ha-won's daily life was so familiar with this interior and scenery, she laughed very happily about this compatibility. Not long after the celebration, the butler walked in and was surprised why Ha-won appeared here. She is the president's very special guest, so why must she suffer like this? Hearing that, the woman panicked and turned 360 degrees to the last person to politely greet her. After shaking and leaving, her stomach began to growl in protest. Seeing that, he also understood. Then, with his outstanding handsomeness and culinary talent, the secretary liaised on cooking in a very professional manner. It's not surprising that the folded matter only turned around for a while, but the delicious dishes were already filled to the brim. The female lead Ha-hak Blind was surprised at this wonderful thing. After finishing the party, she walked out into the spacious living room. While admiring his wealth, Hyunmin quickly ran over and pulled his hand out into the hallway to say hello. I said don't do anything stupid because we're under a contract to pretend to be engaged, remember? Ha-won struggled to protest, but Hyunmin reassured her. Don't you know you're afraid? This family is full of sons. Your son here as my fiancé will be safer than him. After returning, she calmly sat down and looked at his mother's remains, blaming himself for not being able to take good care of her. She temporarily placed it in her room then got into bed to prepare for sleep. But no matter what she do, she not comfortable, she toss and turn and she can't sleep. She sat up and looked around and discovered that the position under the table was very suitable for lying down. It was quite strange. The next day, Ha-won woke up and saw that the maid had prepared a very sumptuous breakfast. While waiting for the aunties to eat with him, he saw Jun-sung. He told her it was okay to sit and enjoy it alone because the 3 brothers' personalities were very different, so they had never sat down to eat together before. At that moment, Grandpa Kong called. Looking at the scene, perhaps he could have thrown away the pile of clothes he owed to her and was relieved to travel. After asking a few simple questions, he gave her the first task, to have the 3 grandchildren sit and eat together. Ha-won wanted to make the 3 of them sit at the same gift table, which was very difficult because he hadn't had much contact with them. Then Jun-sung took her to sign an important contract. He explained through the content that if each time she succeeded in a task assigned by the president, she would be given a redundancy. The reward will usually be commensurate with the difficulty of the task. But if she fails, she must voluntarily leave this villa. The butler then goes to Ha-won Suk-young's house. When she read the business card, she panicked and did not expect that he was the chief secretary of Hanung Group. Jun-sung told them that he was here to pick up Ha-won's luggage. Suk-young immediately turned around, but the housekeeper did not have a good impression of her. The butler didn't even bother to come and look, so he took his luggage and went straight away. On this side, Ha-won went out to the living room and looked around. Why is such a big house without a single family photo? Suddenly Seo-woo came and sat next to her and gently asked what happened last night. Why did she feel like she was crying? Ha-won panicked and realized it wasn't just me getting caught in the rain. Seo-woo said, isn't there something going on with the family there? Because last night he accidentally read the message on her phone and then arbitrarily deleted it. It seemed like the messages sent from Suk-young's daughter were very excessive. So he quickly deleted them so she wouldn't be sad if she read them. It's true that if the eyes don't see, the heart won't hurt. When Jun-sung got his luggage back to the villa, he suddenly received a phone call and quickly ran away, leaving the suitcase in his hand. At that moment, Ha-won was running without looking and dropped the suitcase into the water. Seeing her belongings being swept away by the current, she panicked and jumped into the cold water to pick them up. At this moment, 2 young masters Hyun-min and Seo-woo saw it. They didn't understand why she had to pick up trash. Ha-won told them these were all his treasures. Then, Seo-woo ran to get the boat and pulled her to shore. While Ha-won was saving things, June picked up a bouquet of roses swept away by the water for her. It turned out that when he saw that bouquet of flowers, he immediately recognized it as the bouquet she brought to visit her mother. Putting the bouquet in Ha-won's hand, he told him to take care of his things and not make others worry. So Hyun-min went up and hugged her shoulder and warned Ji-woon that it was not his turn to worry. The 2 of them looked at each other and just wanted to rush in and punch each other. That night, the secretary was ordered to take her shopping for designer clothes from the most famous major fashion brands at that time. While he was choosing clothes, he told Ha-won to go somewhere and play for a while to relax. While walking, I suddenly bumped into a fat lady and dropped her branded crocodile book bag. She picked it up and saw that her bag was so wet that she wanted to scare Ha-won. At the same time, Haiji appeared to analyze how the details on her bag were very different from the limited products, so this was definitely a fake product. She was so embarrassed that she quickly interrupted and left immediately. Then the 2 of them sat and talked together in a cafe. Ha-won thanks Haiji for her help and asks how he knew the bag was fake. Haiji smiled and said it was a simple thing, but anyone who sews a lot would know it because I really like fashion design. Haiji told her that Hyun-min and she had lived in the same neighborhood since childhood, so they had been close since then. At this time, Yuna went to the cafe to look for her best friend. I heard that Ha-won was living at Hanun's villa. Whatever she knows, she quickly confesses. She wasn't even close enough to ask to take out her phone and take a look. After seeing the photos Ha-won took at the luxury villa, he was extremely jealous. And after Haiji left, she found out that Ha-won was living in the villa because she was so sad that she invited Ji-woon to come to the exhibition to confide. At night at the villa, Hyun-min ran to Ha-won's room, knocking on the door and calling. With his clownish nature, he ran back to his room and took out the uniform that she would wear at the upcoming graduation ceremony and threatened to cut off one sleeve. Ha-won was scared and ran after him, begging him not to cut it, but please. She got close to his face like she was about to kiss. Hyun-min, with his flirtatious nature, was also carried away like that, but she was hit in the face with blood and it really hurt. Then, by some force, the 2 had the opportunity to hug each other and then looked at each other passionately. At this moment, Ji-woon brought Haiji back to the place where he saw her, but he was afraid that after seeing her she would be sad, so he held her head and looked into his eyes. The next morning, Ha-won was very confident with his first task, which was to get the 3 people to sit together for a meal. She thought there was nothing difficult about eating a meal, so she ran to Hyun-min's room, startling him awake. She woke up to eat breakfast, but Hyun-min had never eaten breakfast at home. Just as he was about to refuse, he was threatened and warned, so he had to submit. Then she went to the swimming pool to find Ji-woon, but his personality was not very gentle. Ha-won was scared and ran away. Having no choice but to take his phone as a camera, just agreed to have breakfast together and she would return the phone to him. As a result, Ji-woon also had to listen. Seo-woo is a little easier here. Ha-won came to his recording studio even though he had breakfast with everyone, but Seo-woo comfortably agreed. Ha-won personally prepared the table. The first person to arrive was Hyun-min, who just appeared and moved his hands and feet. For this only guy who dared to make physical contact, she had to warn him, but his hands still refused to stay still. Then Seo-woo stepped forward. Seeing Hyun-min here, he didn't even bother to sit down and instead sat at the same dining table. And then the hot-tempered Ji-woon also arrived. The atmosphere started to get tense. Without saying a word, the three brothers started a war, then Hyunmin and Seo Woo-yu left one by one. Only Ji-woon was left and he asked her to return his phone, but Ha-won didn't understand why family love wasn't even as good as a phone. Not waiting for her to continue speaking, Ji-woon pulled her back, causing Ha-won's little heart to suddenly skip a beat. Before she could react, his friends took the opportunity to take the phone back and warned him not to provoke him in the future. The first plan failed just like that. When the president heard this news, he laughed heartily. He thinks that this girl Ha-won has a very daring personality and dares to accept even though she fails. The task is very difficult nonetheless. He was extremely hopeful about what she would do to complete it. Ha-won made a planning book so that the cousins had to eat together. Plan 1 is to catch them all off guard. After that, Ha-won immediately ran out and invited Hyunmin to play beep beep. If you lose, you must have a meal together. But Hyunmin didn't want to have a meal with them at all. She then said, "Do you want to eat or do you want to get hit?" Facing these two stressful opportunities forced Hyunmin to humble himself and play again. After the game of beep beep, it's time to play a game of rock paper scissors with my youngest brother. Whoever comes up later must do something for the other person to come up first. The two of them continued to hold the slogan of the rock paper scissors game continuously in their hands, moving it back and forth continuously. In the end, Ha-won won easily, forcing him to follow the game's rules and go eat with the other two people. Finally, there's the staring game with the cold older brother Ji-woon. But this method did not work for Ji-woon at all. In the end, when dinner came, not a single person showed up. Ha-won soon came up with the second plan of the mission. She heard what the maid said about her father's cupboard missing leather. After that, she personally selects the final ingredients and places the finished food in the middle of the house, spreading the fragrance to every room. The result was not unexpected. The guy immediately ran after the scent. At that time, everyone was sobbing, but unexpectedly, Seo Woo was the first person to overcome this attraction. He didn't have the heart to leave. Seeing the manager open his mouth wide to eat the grilled meat, Hyunmin also had to swallow his saliva and hit him, telling him he was eating too much, then hesitantly walked away. At that time, only Ji-woon was left looking at the dining table with hateful eyes. Ha-won still couldn't stop complaining. He slowly approached and looked at the grilled meat he loved the most, unable to bear it, and slowly opened his mouth. When Ji-woon was about to be caught in the trap, he opened his mouth and said "Go away," then brought his empty stomach back to the room. Ha-won sat helplessly watching his plan fail. Unexpectedly, with this long-standing hatred for each other, good food cannot move them. The concept of family is a big wound for all three of them, even though it's very easy for others. At this time, the stepmother and her daughter were mad because they didn't understand why Ha-won could live in a villa. The mother asked Yuna if she had really confirmed this with her best friend Ha-won. "Actually, I said I saw with my own eyes the photo that girl sent to her best friend from that villa. But I heard that the area is very large and there will probably be many people working, maybe it's just someone washing dishes there. But they said he was personally invited to that villa by the president." The mother stubbornly shouted back. Maybe he called her because Ha-won looked very much like a working person. A few hours ago Hyunmin just broke up with his 999th girlfriend, the reason being that she was too cheap to eat with him, possibly haunted by Ha-won's violent personality. Hyunmin asked his girlfriend to hit him, but she still showed a weak expression, causing Hyunmin to immediately lose interest in playing live. He was already fed up with this type of girlfriend. After many times of trying on many clothes, from dresses to office bags, Ha-won finally appeared with a white dress so pretty that even Hyunmin was surprised. Then he gave her another leather bag worth tens of millions more to make it luxurious enough. After that, Hyunmin directly used his status as a Vietnamese family to promote his wealth and told the staff that the only 3 sets he had left were all wrapped up. In the evening, when the president's eldest grandson was having dinner with Haiji at a luxurious 5-star restaurant, suddenly the couple Hyunmin and Ha-won also chirped. Hyunmin saw this and immediately got upset and told Ha-won to leave quickly because we shouldn't be here. But out of politeness, she told him not to go anywhere but to stay and eat with them. Then the 4 of them looked at each other shyly with their faces but were not content to stay silent and not say a word. The food has come up gradually. Haiji told Ji-woon to ask the chef to tell them to cook the clams a little longer. His eyes widened in surprise, "But you don't like well-cooked clams?" She turned to Hyunmin and said he can't eat clams that aren't cooked properly, right? Ji-woon was both jealous and sad looking at Haiji because he had liked her for a long time and acting like that was too much for him. Also because Haiji knew that Hyunmin was like that since he was a child in elementary school. He accidentally ate a raw clam and had such a stomach ache that he had to go to the hospital. After that, not only did he not pay attention to Haiji's words, but Hyunmin also intentionally cared for Ha-won every little bit like an official couple. Ha-won was struggling because the dress costing more than 100 million was already dirty when she looked up and was startled by Ji-woon's ungainliness. I don't know where he came from but shamelessly crawled into the women's restroom. Ji-woon angrily said that she was happy to buy expensive clothes and eat in a luxurious place like this. If she tried to enter Ha-neun's mansion just for this purpose, it would be pathetic. Ha-won was angry because he looked down on her, so his words weren't very good. You know, my goals aren't that shallow. I have a high-paying job, so my ambitions and goals are big. I heard you guys have never eaten together, and this Ha-won's goal is to make you guys a real family, understand? After going outside, he remembered the words his grandfather said during their conversation. I told the president all my life I was Han Ji-woon, how could I become Kang Ji-woon overnight? He scolded me that if that's the case, if you plan to continue working as Han Ji-woon to repair cars, then cut off relations with those people from now on. You're different from them. Like those are the people who along with Ji-woon experienced joys and sorrows. They are like your family, always by your side in the most difficult times. Why would the president have the heart to tell you to leave them? He poked Ji-woon in the face again. The privileged family is not your family or friends. Hearing that, he felt helpless, so he didn't say anything more and left. When the two of them were washing their hands, Han-ji directly asked Ha-won and Hein-min what their relationship was. He didn't bother to raise his head and replied that she was his fiancée. Hai-ji was once again hurt and felt that he should not continue to stay here, so he stood up and left alone. Ji-woon then turns around to find Hai-ji gone. He quickly chased after and saw Hai-ji walking desperately in the middle of the road. On this side, a truck is rushing towards her. That is to say, when a person falls into a state of extreme suffering, he will easily lose his reason and fall into tragedy. Ji-woon excitedly asked Hai-ji what exactly did she want. Hai-ji frankly told her that she only liked being with Hein-min. If only Ha-won hadn't appeared, her life would have been better. Seeing the person he loves suffering like that, Ji-woon immediately made a decision. Meanwhile, Hein-min takes Ha-won to another villa. Then he told her that this house was his gift to her. In case one day she doesn't complete her grandfather's mission and gets kicked out of the villa, she can stay here. But on one condition: she must agree to date him. Hein-min said as he put his arm on Ha-won's shoulder. Seeing that, she immediately replied that I had absolutely no thoughts of dating him. If you still dare to move your hands and feet, watch out for your feet, you know. In order to quickly complete chairman mission, after returning home, she immediately formed a group to directly ask everyone to come to the kitchen to eat in an hour. As a result, 3 people simultaneously left the group. Wanting the 3 of them to eat together is actually more difficult than going to heaven. Then Ji-woon found Hein-min and said he wanted to give him a surprise. Actually, he intentionally caused misunderstanding so that Ha-won would leave Hein-min and create an opportunity for Hai-ji. Then he hugged Ha-won's neck from behind his face just in time to be seen by Hein-min coming out. Hein-min angrily shouted at him, "What are you doing?" Ji-woon clearly stated, "I want to steal your fiancée." When the 2 brothers quarreled over her, fireworks suddenly appeared in the sky. It turns out Zhou accidentally discovered that today was Ha-won's birthday, so he specially prepared this party for her. The 3 brothers finally sat down to wish Ha-won a happy birthday. It's very difficult to have the opportunity to sit together. It really surprised Ha-won. Then she took out her phone and took the first photo with all 3 brothers present, which was considered to have completed the first task assigned to her by the president. When the chairman received the message, he was overjoyed. He immediately gave her a scholarship with cash and free tuition for 1 year. Although Ha-won tried to refuse, this was still just a trivial matter for him. After receiving the reward, the first thing Ha-won did was make arrangements for her mother's remains. She told Mom that I found a new job. Having many people around her who care about her makes her very happy every day. She will also definitely fulfill her grandmother's wish of becoming a university student. Ha-won arrived home to find everyone very busy. From the maid's mouth, she knew that in 3 days it was the birthday of Chairman Kang's 3 sons. Every year on this day, the family will hold a huge worship ceremony. At the same time, Ha-won also learned that on the annual holiday, the chairman's 3 grandchildren did not participate. At that time, the housekeeper was also soliciting the opinions of 3 young family journalists in Vietnam. He hopes this year they will visit his father together. But in the end, whatever happens will happen. Of course, the secretary still received a refusal. Immediately after learning of such a serious situation, Ha-won extremely confidently asked the chairman to give him a second mission. She will definitely make all 3 of them appear on her father's birthday. Can Ha-won really conquer 3 bouncing ponies? Ha-won then immediately embarked on his next mission. First she went to the swimming pool where young man Ji-woon practiced every day. With her cheerfulness, she invested in a pair of swimming goggles and then put her face in the water to observe and find Ji-woon easily. Seeing this, Ji-woon suddenly choked on water and quickly rose up. Ha-won told Ji-woon in a teasing and challenging tone that why aren't you wearing anything today? Okay, go ahead. Ji-woon was surprised, but he said he liked me. I'm thinking about whether I should swim with you or not, but can you say you like me in front of Hai-ji? I know you and Kang Hyun-min and Hai-ji are a love triangle. That relationship is complicated enough as it is. I don't want to know why you dragged me into it or that you like to have complicated relationships. Ji-woon stubbornly replied that yes, I really like those things, so what's the matter? Ha-won wants to take off his clothes and swim with Ji-woon. She wanted to try to see how comfortable it would be to swim naked like Ji-woon did last time. After that, she tried to talk closer to understand Ji-woon better. In the end, their relationship got a little better. After talking with Australian CEO Woo Ha-won, he also learned that he was not interested in making offerings at all. After his father passed away, his grandfather considered him family because his grandmother was not married to his grandfather. In the past, people like his grandmother were often called concubines, so Seo Woo's father had to live a miserable life to avoid his grandfather's wives. Finally, Ha-won went to meet and persuade the tycoon who wanted Hein-min's girlfriend. "You're not really planning on going there to visit your father, are you?" Hein-min said he wouldn't come because there was someone there he didn't want to meet. "I hope you don't waste any more effort in vain." She angrily thought to herself that it was so annoying that it seemed like they had to fight to get them to leave. But Ha-won is not someone who finds it difficult to give up easily, unlike the other two newspaper men. When Ha-won talked about going to visit his father on his Father's Day, Ji-woon firmly said that he didn't have a father. When walking out of the living room, Ha-won suddenly encountered Hein-min's mother, who had just returned from abroad. She hoped that her grandmother would take advantage of her and take her with her as a maid to carry groceries when she went shopping in the mall. But during dinner she revealed her true colors. She started talking Ha-won, "It's not like you think you're already the daughter-in-law of this family and are trying to get close to me. I hope you don't have any illusions but know yourself and your destiny." Hein-min standing outside heard it and opened the door, went in and pulled Ha-won away without even saying hello to his mother. Out in the lobby, the two disagreed about something, but Hein-min made Ha-won feel self-conscious and leave. Returning to the villa, she was so uncomfortable because of the boil on her hand that she had to go out into the lobby to make herself more comfortable. Instead, Ji-woon used the healing technique his mother left behind to help Ha-won easily inject the boil. After seeing his gentleness, she said, "Looking at what he did reminded me of my deceased mother. Since her mother passed away, no one has helped her take care of her." Ji-woon consoled herself that even though her mother had passed away, she still had her father. But Ha-won affirmed that her father would never do that because she was not his biological child. Ha-won still stubbornly believes that he is her biological father. Ji-woon said there are people like him who don't even know who their biological father is. Ha-won hopes to be able to meet her biological father even just once. After that, the two happily went to a convenience store like Circle K in Vietnam to have dinner together. So Ha-won's plan to get close to Prince Ji-woon to make the next mission more convenient was half successful. Now he also has different views and thoughts about Ha-won. He also no longer hates her. Hyun-min caught two people just returning from eating. He was both jealous and felt guilty because he talked to Ha-won that night. He proactively went to make peace but was unsuccessful. "The day has come to comfort your father." Ha-won had been standing in the hall outside the temple since early morning, waiting for the three people. But in the end, there was still no sign of anyone. When she was sadly about to give up, Seo Woo's car suddenly appeared and then Hyun-min also arrived. This made Ha-won's sad face suddenly brighten again. Thinking that Ji-hun would also come to pay his respects, she still tried to wait every last moment but still couldn't see his sign. She then bowed down and apologized to her grandfather because she couldn't complete the task this time. Seeing this, the chairman looked a little disappointed and looked at her without saying anything and turned around and left. The butler saw this and immediately walked over to comfort Ha-won. If Ji-hun also comes then this is truly a miracle, so she doesn't need to worry too much. While everyone was doing the ceremony, a monk came forward and told the butler that Ji-hun had actually come here to visit his father and that the white rose in front of the photo was left by him. It's just because of his taciturn personality that he doesn't want to celebrate with his family, that's why he's not present today. After the ceremony, the butler immediately told this matter to the chairman. At that time, Ha-won still thought the mission had failed. She sadly returned to pack her things. When she was packing her luggage and preparing to move out of the Hanung villa, she suddenly remembered the three young masters and the days she lived with them. She gently left a note saying goodbye to everyone and then left. After that, the mother and daughter shamelessly claimed to be Ha-won's family and entered the chairman's villa. As a result, the housekeeper promptly discovered him and kicked him out. Then, her sister Yuna, with her jealousy, distorted the truth on the school's website to attack Ha-won, who had no way to escape. While typing on the keyboard, he mumbled, "Ha-won, you're definitely dead." The female students who didn't understand what was going on after reading the article rushed to compete with Ha-won. Reading these comments, Yuna began to show a very satisfied smile. As for our Princess Cinderella, she had no one to rely on at this time, so she went to her best friend's house to beg her to let her stay one night. The result was flatly rejected. It's true that they're close friends, but they're all worried about each other. At that moment, Haiji suddenly entered the coffee shop. When the two saw each other, they were stunned. Out loud, seeing that they seemed to know each other and not yet receiving Haiji's consent, he pushed Ha-won to her. Haiji didn't care at first, but after hesitating for a while, he still decided to let Ha-won stay one night. In the room, Ha-won suddenly discovered a childhood photo of Haiji and Hyun-min. Seeing that, Haiji shyly ran out to get it back. Seeing that, Ha-won immediately told Haiji the truth that she was actually just Hyun-min's fake fiancé. She moved to the Hanan villa just to help President Kong with a few things. After hearing this, Haiji suddenly became so happy that he couldn't sleep at night. Ha-won tells Haiji that tomorrow at her school, there will be a graduation ceremony, but she doesn't have anyone to go with her. So Haiji immediately agreed with Ha-won to go with her tomorrow. Hearing that, Ha-won was extremely happy and hugged the beauty. The next morning Hyunmin entered Ha-won's room. At that time, he still did not know that Ha-won had left this villa a long time ago. "Where have you gone so early in the morning?" Just as he was about to go out, he remembered that today was Ha-won's graduation ceremony, so he hurried back to his room to find her uniform. "But when I took it out, I had to stand and watch, helpless and uncomfortable. It's obviously been washed but now it's dirty with ink like this, oh my god." Seeing that time was running out, Hyunmin hurriedly ran to the uniform store to buy a new set for Ha-won. After that, I happily drove to the school, and there were several loaded trucks following behind. As soon as Hyunmin arrived in the schoolyard, he proudly announced loudly where his girlfriend Ha-won was and also prepared 3 truckloads of gifts and lots of food for everyone. He invited all the female students to enjoy it to find out where Ha-won was, while he was looking for her everywhere. Behind him, female students flocked to take pictures. Wherever such a rich man goes, fans follow him. Meanwhile, the students were all talking about online rumors posted by some bitch's daughter with extremely cruel statements. At that time, Ha-won was being bullied by a group of famous female students who were the big sisters in the school. Ji-woon was the first to find her. In that scene, Ha-won looked very pitiful, her uniform was torn to tatters. Seeing her pitiful appearance, Ji-woon quickly smiled and put his coat on for her. When Ji-woon took her and prepared to leave, the other female students called another group of bullies. Seeing this, the young man immediately asked Ha-won to stand behind him. When Ji-woon was about to teach them a lesson, Hyunmin stood behind and called out loudly, attracting everyone's attention. This rich guy took out the car key and then pointed to the box car parked below and said that whoever gets the car key first will have that person's car. The gangsters had never met a tycoon this rich, so they all ran downstairs. At the same time, Seo-woo just arrived at school and attracted a bunch of female students. As soon as he arrived at school, he was surrounded by them. Seo-woo then immediately made an excuse and quickly walked away from the crowd. When all the boys ran down and were about to pick up the keys, the butler arrived one step ahead. After the graduation ceremony, Ha-won was alone, slowly walking on the path of cherry blossoms. At that time, everyone at the Han mansion was eagerly waiting for Ha-won to come home. In fact, in their hearts, they have long considered her as family. No matter what, the maid kept walking back and forth worrying, "My god, what should we do now? The weather is very cold today. The world out there is still very cruel." Because he was so impatient, the butler and Master Seo-woo invited each other to urgently find Ha-won. On this side, the guy confessing his love for failure came out of the school. He discovered that everyone around him kept looking at him and laughing in his face. He had a premonition, so he immediately took out his phone. At that time, I learned that the video of him confessing his love to Ha-won had already been widely reported by the media. The butler came to the stepmother's house and asked if Ha-won was coming home today. When she heard it, she thought they had kicked Ha-won out, so she turned around and smugly said. Master Seo-woo followed the name on the uniform. He drove to a cafe, hoping to find some clues. But suddenly he meets Ha-won's best friend. He was confused and panicked when she recognized him because of his occupational disease and was afraid that the crowd would know and chase him. The two of them sat and looked at each other for a while, but talking did not help Seo-woo learn any more information about Ha-won. Ji-woon suddenly remembered a place Ha-won once mentioned when she was sad. He quickly drove to the convenience store. Sure enough, Ha-won was there. In front of her, she placed 3 bowls of noodles, 1 bowl for herself and the remaining 2 bowls for her father and mother. She said to herself everyday words just like a family sitting down to eat. Ha-won suddenly remembered her mother's wishes and burst into tears, saying she was sorry for not being able to continue going to college. Ji-woon accidentally heard these words and felt that Ha-won was pitiful. He insulted Ha-won in a daring way, criticizing her for eating 3 bowls of noodles by herself. Then he told Ha-won to stop being hungry and go home. Ha-won still didn't understand what was going on, so he continued to say that actually on the day he comforted his father, he had visited him. After that, the two happily returned to Hanan's apartment together. Everyone at home is extremely worried because up until now there has been no more news about Ha-won. Then suddenly Ha-won walked in, making the atmosphere completely cheerful. Everyone came out to welcome us warmly, from the butler to the maid and even the owner of Seo-woo. Ha-won was very surprised to see a video recording of him and Hyunmin talking to each other in the school's live stream room. Hyunmin is also in the game shop right now watching his confession video being shared on social networking platforms. He knew that his image of a perfect dude had been successfully transformed into a manly man. He didn't dare show his face on the street anymore. Hyunmin felt like he was transformed into a different person. At this time, Ha-won was invited by the president and gave her a bunch of free travel vouchers. These tickets are all business class and she can invite anyone to go with her. Ha-won immediately thought of dragging the other along to make their brotherly bond even more wonderful. When she returned to the villa, the first person she wanted to invite was Ji-woon. But it's a pity that as soon as he heard her invite him, he flatly refused. The next subject is Kang Seo-woo. The next day, Ha-won went to her family friend's place to play and was accidentally provided with a pile of valuable documents. Those were the photos she took of Seo Woo wearing a female uniform while running away from a group of troublesome female students at Ha-won's school. Then suddenly a bold idea popped into Ha-won's head. She plans to use these photos to threaten Seo Woo. After that, she secretly disguised herself as an anonymous person and arranged to meet with Seo Woo's manager to exchange those embarrassing photos. In return, he has to disrupt Seo Woo's schedule for 3 days so she can have a chance to drag this worldly journalist on a trip with her. Meanwhile, Hyunmin is going to the cosmetic hospital to ask the doctor to change her face. It doesn't matter if you're handsome or not, just change your face. The doctor almost choked when he heard that because he also saw your video online. After that, he advised Hyunmin to find a psychologist. Every day, Hyunmin looks absent-mindedly into the garden and does some sad things. He sat in a corner counting leaves and mumbled that he loved her but didn't love her. Seeing that, Ha-won came closer to ask about him with concern, but he didn't want to pay attention to her. She tried to invite Hyunmin to go on a trip with her to relax, but he still sat bewildered, counting leaves. Knowing that Prince Ji-woon is secretly in love with the beauty Haiji, Ha-won quickly went to meet Haiji. Ha-won came to earnestly invite Haiji to travel with her and the other 3 guys. On the trip there will be Ha-won, Haiji along with Hyunmin, Seo Woo, and Ji-woon. Ha-won tells the truth that she received an order from the chairman to make them agree to travel together. I heard that the Hanan Group's resort villa is very beautiful, but it's impossible for Ha-won to be the only one to invite the 3 of them to go together. She thought that if Haiji came with her, the 3 of them would definitely go. If she told me to go too, they would definitely go. At this moment, Master Ji-woon suddenly walked in and yelled at Ha-won that she had to do something like that. But surprisingly, Haiji agreed to go on a trip with Ha-won. Even so, he still stubbornly persisted in his decision not to go. After Ha-won left embarrassed, Haiji turned to confide in Ji-woon that she wanted to return to visit the Hanan Group's resort villa. If you don't want to go, that's okay. But Ji-woon doesn't know that Haiji is still not confident in facing Hyunmin alone. When Hyunmin woke up from a dream, he found himself on a plane. He was bewildered and surprised, not knowing why he was here. He took off his seatbelt and ran forward to ask where he was, but everyone turned away without answering. Because he was too noisy, 2 security guards carried him back to his chair. Hyunmin helplessly kicked her sandals. After arriving at the resort, Ha-won prepared group shirts for everyone, but everyone seemed a bit grumpy and left to go back to their rooms. Jun-sung called Chairman Kong to report, but he told him that he didn't need to report in such detail and take this opportunity to rest. Because he didn't want to give up any opportunity to help the 3 journalist brothers understand each other better, Ha-won fried each schedule into each person's room. Then she went to look for Hyunmin and found him sunbathing at the swimming pool. She knew he was still angry at her for making him a laughingstock and forcing him to come here. Ha-won had to say sorry, but Hyunmin refused to forgive her easily. He criticized her for being a single girl, so she didn't know how to look at someone like that. Her view on love was too outdated. Then he used the excuse that he needed to rest and chased her away. Ha-won angrily leaves and scolds him as a womanizer who only sleeps all day. After Ha-won left, Haiji came wearing a swimsuit. Hyunmin thought Ha-won hadn't left yet and was about to open his mouth to chase away when he saw Haiji swimming underwater. Going ashore, Haiji asked if he remembered, and they were kids, they used to swim here and he always swam slower than her. Hyunmin only slightly replied that he didn't remember much. Seeing that, Haiji asked him to compete in swimming with her like when he was a child. Hyunmin used the excuse of not bringing his swimsuit and was about to leave. At this moment, Haiji got a muscle cramp. Then he helped her massage the cramped leg. She thanked him, but he just coldly replied that anyone would do the same and then stood up and left. Over here, Suk-young and her daughter are plotting with each other. They thought that if Ha-won followed her biological father, she would leave the Hanung villa. She said that she had spent a lot of money to raise a child who was not her blood, so she was determined to find Ha-won's biological father to reclaim that money. At this time, Ha-won was feeding the goats and told them that it seemed like you were the only ones willing to play with me. Having so many friends eating together like this must make you very happy. Ha-won suddenly remembered what a happy family she had when she was young. She remembered the moment she and her parents had fun at the campsite. How long has it been since she laughed so happily? Ha-won blamed herself for wasting her time in vain planning, then optimistically assumed that if no one joined her, she would do it herself. While she was feeding the horse with carrots, Ji-woon walked in. "Is this a horse riding experience?" he asked her. She just glanced at him and replied that for her, this was already horseback riding. Ji-woon then pulled her to ride a horse with him, but she was scared and refused because she had never ridden a horse before. He sarcastically said that she had a great plan, but when asked to try it, she didn't dare to try. Finally, Ha-won reluctantly agrees. Ji-woon let her sit in front while he sat behind holding the reins. He told her to relax a bit and not die, even though she was afraid of chess. Ha-won replied of course, because this was her first time riding a horse. Then the two of them rode together on horseback along the beautiful small road. While Seo Woo was questioning him, did he send a photo of him wearing women's clothes to Ha-won? Jun-sung suddenly walked over and put the things in his hand. He asked him to prepare for tonight's barbecue because Jun-sung had to go to the supermarket to buy food. If you present it, go to the ward to resolve it. On this side, Ha-won and Ji-woon walked home together after riding. While walking, Ha-won suddenly discovered that she had lost her necklace. Ha-won asked Ji-woon to go home first and she would go back to look for it because she thought that perhaps the necklace had fallen while riding. But Ji-woon didn't feel secure, so he ran after her. Seeing her panicking and searching carefully, Ji-woon immediately asked if that necklace was very important. Ha-won did not hesitate to answer that the necklace was a relic left by her mother. Ji-woon says if he can find it, then Ha-won owes him a wish. Ha-won laughed and said what kind of deal was that, but still tacitly agreed. At that time, Jae-young and Seo-woo were preparing grilled food and talking to each other. He asked her, besides Ha-won, she didn't send those photos to anyone, right? Jae-young confirmed that she showed only Ha-won those photos. Seo-woo also asked him to ask if the two of them were very close to each other. Jae-young replied that the two were close and she knew everything about Ha-won very well. Ha-won's family is not the poor type, but Suk-young never gives her money and Yuna always takes advantage of her. Her father works far away all the time, so he's not often home. The most outrageous thing is that just because Yuna wanted to have her own room, Suk-young sent Ha-won to the public table to sleep. Hearing that, Seo-woo was indignant and threw the meat skewer down. Immediately realizing that his actions were a bit too aggressive, Seo-woo quickly picked up the meat skewer and pretended to be calm. Seo-woo asked again if Ha-won had ever dated them before, but Jae-young confirmed that Ha-won had never dated them. She has never had a lover and doesn't even have an ideal role model because her life is difficult enough. Then Jae-young asked in return, did he seem to care for Ha-won too much? Seo-woo had to reason that the two of them were from the same family, so they cared about each other. At this time, Ha-won and Ji-woon still haven't found the necklace. Seeing him struggling like that for her, she could only say sorry. She asks him to come here all because of Haiji, right? Ji-woon did not answer her directly but asked back who took advantage of that. She told him how when she left the villa Hanun Haiji had given her a place to stay for the night. Because he knew Un Haiji very well, Ha-won invited her to go with him. That was also the first time she slept over at someone else's house. She felt like the two had truly become friends, so she invited Haiji to travel with her, not because of her stressful duties as president. Hearing that, Ji-woon immediately praised her for doing a good job, then turned around and left. Unexpectedly, at this moment he saw Ha-won's necklace. He turned around again and told Ha-won to think of the conditions if he found the necklace. In the end, she had to compromise and grant his wish. Ji-woon proudly dropped the necklace in front of Ha-won. Ha-won happily jumped into Ji-woon's arms and hugged her. After realizing how rude she was, she let him go and said thank you. She also told him that it was her mother's only keepsake. She thought this was a very important object to her mother because before she passed away, she still held it tightly. After talking, the two returned together. At this time, Haiji went to Heinmin's room and picked up her wet clothes, thinking he had nothing to change into. Just as she was about to take it away to snatch it, Heinmin came out and snatched it back, asking her what she was doing. Haiji advised him to borrow Ji-woon's clothes, but he disdainfully said that if she came here because of Ji-woon, then go play with him. Haiji quickly says that she came here just for him. It's been 10 years since you two came back together and you don't feel anything. Heinmin said that this didn't mean anything and then turned to leave. Haiji said that when she went out to see it, it was still there and nothing had changed. That was the bench he carved his name on and said he loved her. Haiji says he really hasn't changed at all. Hearing that, Heinmin turned around and said yes, so stop it. Hearing that, Haiji could only sadly leave. When Ji-woon and Ha-won returned, they saw Haiji alone standing on the bridge. Knowing that the two of them had something to say to each other, Ha-won quickly left first. While Ha-won was bathing, Ji-woon came in to look for her phone, which she forgot. He thought the person inside was Heinmin, so he carelessly opened the door. But before she could look, Ha-won threw the soap in her face. Why did he scream? But when he heard Ha-won's voice, he was startled and said sorry, then covered his mouth and ran out. While Ji-woon was walking back and forth in front of the bathroom door, Ha-won opened the door and walked out. The two looked at each other awkwardly. He explained that because the door was broken, he stood guard not to let anyone in. After returning to her room, Ha-won kept walking back and forth, not knowing what to do. Jae-young came in and asked her what was wrong. Ha-won hurriedly ran outside. She left so quickly that she didn't have time to finish saying that the yellow lid is milk, so she drank it by mistake. That night when Jun-sung and Seo-woo were preparing the barbecue, Ha-won ran out. Jun-sung saw her acting strangely and were surprised to ask her if she wasn't feeling well. Ha-won straightforwardly replied that yes, she was feeling very bad. Finally, everyone realized she was drunk because she drank the wrong bottle of wine. Ha-won blamed everyone for not being willing to play with her, so she had to retreat and play alone. Traveling with friends is her dream. She was looking forward to this trip, but no one was willing to play with her. Everyone felt funny when they saw Seo-woo arguing with a Maman. Then she forced everyone to wear the clothes she prepared and played a game that made everyone feel helpless. Thanks to Ha-won, everyone felt happy to be themselves that night. Secretary Jun-sung also fainted after calling her name because of several sips of alcohol. After being drunk, Ji-woon also turned around and said he loved Hein-min, making him angry. Jun-sung vomited all over Seo-woo's body, causing Hein-min to see it and run away quickly. After being taken back to his room, he kept talking in his sleep, sat up, then lay down again and went back to sleep. Hein-min was sitting in the flower garden enjoying the breeze when Hai-ji came. He was about to get up and leave, but she told him to sit down for a bit. Hai-ji also sat down next to him and thanked him for saving him in the morning. Hein-min kicked and said that if it were anyone, he would do the same. Hai-ji says next time she will warm up more thoroughly. Then she asked him if he remembered that because of the different writing on the chair, her brother used to call them childish. The two of them sat together and talked about old times and remembered their childhood. Suddenly Hai-ji sat close to Hein-min and kissed him. Hein-min, who was immersed in the kiss, suddenly stood up. Hai-ji said that if Hein-min didn't remember anything, she would like someone else, but he coldly replied that he didn't care. Ji-woon was spinning his fishing rod but kept saying he loved Ha-won and even shot hearts, but she just told him to go away. Hearing that, Ji-woon spoke even louder, but Ha-won still kept telling him to go away. The third time Ji-woon shouted "I love you," Ha-won sat up and asked again. Then the two mamen sat and smiled at each other. Ji-woon kissed Ha-won on the lips, then grabbed the glass of wine from her hand and drank it all, knocking over the coat rack. After drinking, he pulled Ha-won's face closer for another kiss. After being unlucky, he asked again if Ha-won had just kissed him and then continued to kiss her on the lips. The next morning Ha-won suddenly woke up. In her dream, she dreamed that she and Ji-woon were kissing each other passionately. Stepping out the door, still in a daze because she was drunk yesterday, she suddenly saw Ji-woon lying in front of bedroom door. Seeing him in her mind, she suddenly remembered the scene where the two of them drank wine. Ha-won was so embarrassed that he didn't know where to hide his face and quietly ran away. Entering the bathroom, she jumped up like a butterfly. But then she carelessly stepped on soap. As a result, she fell and hit her head, lying motionless on the bathroom's wooden floor. Everyone was in their own place and suddenly heard Ha-won's screams and rushed over. The secretary rushed her to the emergency hospital, but fortunately after the examination, the doctor came out and announced that she only had a mild brain injury. She will wake up soon, but right now she is sleeping very soundly. Then the butler called to inform the three at home that Ha-won was fine and that there was no serious problem. The butler said he would take Ha-won back to Seo-woo safely, so you guys should go back to the Han-won villa by yourself. After hearing that, Seo-woo informed the cousins to quickly pack up their clothes and return to Seo-woo together. At this time, our naughty female lead Ha-won has dreamily woke up from her coma. As soon as she opened her eyes, she asked the nurse what day it was. When he heard the nurse say that today was only the 15th, Ha-won widened his eyes and stood up in confusion, saying why hasn't a day passed yet? Then her close friend saw that Ha-won had woken up and immediately ran in. But Cinderella Princess Ha-won still sings with the idea that when people faint, they will lose their temporary memory. Thanks to Ha-won, she held two crutches with both hands because the instep of her foot was broken from a fall in the bathroom. As soon as I arrived at the door, everyone ran to the branch to welcome me. Ha-won saw Ji-woon and immediately remembered last night when she and he kissed passionately. Ha-won was so embarrassed that he didn't know where to hide his face, so he threw away his two crutches and quickly hopped back to his room. On this side, the doctor informed Jun-sung that the chairman's cirrhosis was getting worse. Without a transplant, the chairman's liver will soon completely fail. The only option now is a new liver transplant. While walking outside, Beauty Hai-ji asked Ji-woon if there was something going on between him and Ha-won. Since they were at Ha-noon's villa, she felt like they were shy with each other. She thinks that Ha-won is intentionally avoiding Ji-woon. Ji-woon smelled the shame and stuttered his explanation. Maybe Ha-won felt embarrassed because of the incident, but there was nothing wrong with the two of them. Now, since Ha-won's leg is injured, everyone is taking care of him. Even the men who usually only know how to be lazy, but now they each take turns in her. Hein-min sees that Ha-won has nothing to grow in her wardrobe, so he gets up and buys it for her. An artist Seo-woo ran into the kitchen and pushed a huge table of food into the room for Ha-won to nourish. Even when he saw that she was eating less than usual, he panicked and carefully asked Ha-noon to squeeze each part to see if she was injured anywhere else. He saw that today Ha-won showed signs of loss of appetite, so she was very different from usual Ha-won. Seeing that, she smiled brightly because she was touched. On this side, Jun-sung is sitting and talking with the doctor. The doctor said that with the current situation, Chairman Kong has to wait at least 2 to 3 years. However, if his relative is willing to donate his liver, his death schedule will be pushed up. But Chairman Kong told him to keep this a secret from his family at all costs. At night, Ji-woon also sat and laughed the whole time because of the kiss with Ha-won. When he passed the room, she looked in but couldn't see Ha-won anywhere. It was as if he instinctively had a premonition that something was wrong and immediately ran inside. As soon as I arrived, I saw Ha-won lying with her legs up, waiting in the bathroom. Because she had a cast on her leg, it was impossible to let it soak in water, so she tied a plastic bag to her leg and washed her hair herself. Ji-woon saw that Ha-won's current appearance was both pitiful and embarrassing, so he helped her wash her hair. Ji-woon proudly said that no one else would do this for you except me, you stupid girl. And Haiji and Heinmin's relationship is getting worse and worse. Right at that moment outside the main hall, under the witness of Ji-woon, she told Heinmin. From now on I won't shed tears for Heinmin anymore. I also want to give up on him because of that. Ji-woon, will you accept me? At that moment, Ha-won accidentally heard these words and didn't know what to do but stand still. Heinmin left for his room and Ji-woon seemed hesitant. Haiji told him there was no need to answer him hastily, then said goodnight and returned to his room. Ha-won went out and returned the watch to him, jokingly saying, "He probably not going to sleep tonight because he liked Haiji so much." She asked if the two of them were going on a date, then said goodnight and returned to the room. Ji-woon returned to his room naked, thinking about what Haiji said and remembering the first time he met her. When he first moved in, he saw Haiji crying alone in Hanin's mansion. Seeing her cry like that, he remembered his mother, who was also heartbroken like that, and then he fell asleep outside. Haiji saw that and gave him a coat. Maybe that's why he asked for his love for that gentle girl. At the end of the flashback, Ji-woon covers himself with a blanket and goes to sleep. The next day Haiji went online to find out how to know if that person likes her. Someone commented that he would never get angry with her. No matter what happened, because boys would never get angry with the person they love. Seeing that, she tried it. Ha-won tried throwing a book at Ji-woon's head. Ji-woon saw that and just shook his head and walked away. Then, when he was holding a glass of orange juice and preparing to drink it, Ha-won intentionally bled, causing the orange juice to spill all over him. He didn't know what she was doing, but seeing that she was apologizing, he had to let it go. Finally, she went to his secret residence and rummaged through all his belongings and bedding. When Ji-woon returned, he saw that his room had turned into a battlefield, so he went crazy to look for Ha-won. At this time, she still listened to the poem and asked me again, "What did I do? Why did you not treat the sick person well?" Right now he was angry but didn't know what to do, so he just told her go to sleep. Then when he was about to go out, Ha-won threw a pillow at him. He was about to go back and get angry when she asked if he didn't care if I was hurt or not. He never worried about me nor bought me anything to eat. Hearing that, he just remained silent, then asked her if she was a child, stopped causing trouble and then walked out, leaving Ha-won feeling upset in the room. After Haiji meets Ji-woon, she asks him if he has no opinion about the previous day. Ji-woon's movement suddenly stopped and he turned to reply that what he said that day was true. Haiji said yes, I mean it. On the way back he remembered what Haiji said. While deep in thought, he suddenly saw a shop selling bread and remembered Ha-won, so he got out of the car and bought it for her. As soon as she entered the door, Ji-woon ran into the idiot Heinmin. Heinmin asked him if the date was fun, but always hanging around Haiji in a pathetic but effective way. Ji-woon immediately replied that now Haiji wants to date me, so he feels sorry for her. This afternoon, find Haiji if you have anything to say, I'll answer for her. Seeing Heinmin holding his collar, he continued speaking. Your reaction clearly shows me that you already regret it, but before you regret it even more, why don't you go and hold on to her? After arguing with that idiot, Ji-woon went into the kitchen to find Ha-won and gave her the bread he bought. He said, I already bought you something, please don't complain to me anymore, and happily went back to the room. Ha-won happily ate, drank milk and listened to music. The atmosphere at this time is perfect for sleeping until the next morning. At this time, Heinmin was sadly sitting alone at the bar drinking wine when a woman approached him to start a conversation. She asked Heinmin why he drank so much alcohol alone. Heinmin didn't even look, he just opened his mouth and said, do you think you like anyone else besides me? Heinmin was sitting alone talking, but the aunt next to him thought he was talking to her, so she opened her mouth to respond and then stuck close to him. The next morning, when Ha-won went to the hospital to check her broken leg, Jun-sung was next to her, explaining all the things she had to be careful of and then remembering to report the condition of her leg to him. Because that secretary talked too much, she had to find Ji-woon and ask him to take her there. Hearing that, Ji-woon was confused and asked again, did he still have to escort her to the women's hospital? Ha-won bluntly replied that Jun-sung was busy and the car that went to take pictures of Heinmin was nowhere to be seen, so she missed him. But Ji-woon still insisted that he wouldn't go. Ha-won used humiliation again to ask him why she had to drag her painful leg to the bus or subway. Her face now looked extremely pitiful, but Ji-woon still didn't agree until her throat was sore. Over here, Jun-sung is taking the chairman's wife to meet someone. Even in his wildest dreams, he would not have expected that his wife would take him for a cool car ride. But Jun-sung just apologized and left. The lady ran after him and asked him what he was doing. Jun-sung yelled at the song that he should have asked her, why did he have to do these things? It turns out that the lady is Jun-sung's biological mother. She said her mother's wish was to see her son marry a prestigious lady and live a fulfilling life. Jun-sung turned to ask his mother, is that why she took advantage of the president? His mother did not hesitate to admit that it was so and said there was nothing wrong with her doing that. But Jun-sung just blandly told her not to take him for granted because he would pretend that nothing had happened like the old promise. She remembered the time when the chairman said he would introduce a trustworthy person to her. But unexpectedly that person was Jun-sung, the son she abandoned 12 years ago. She hopes Jun-sung will pretend he doesn't know her because she wants to live like an unstable woman for the rest of her life. After listening, Jun-sung felt very heartbroken. Tears rolled down his cheeks, but he didn't say a word, just endured silently. As soon as Ha-won reached the door, he saw Ji-woon waiting for a long time. Ji-woon was about to get in the car when Ha-won asked him to open the car door for her, and then the two of them went to the hospital. When she got there, the doctor said she had recovered, which made her a little unhappy. Looking back at Ji-woon, he saw him smiling evenly at her. Ha-won signaled to the doctor, but he didn't understand, so he still insisted that her leg was cured. Hearing that, Ji-woon threw down her crutch and went out. He was very upset because he mistook a healthy person for a sick person, so he told her to go home on her own. Her leg has healed, so there's no reason for me to take her home anymore. Ha-won asked him why he was so upset about this. Did going to the hospital with her make you hate him so much? Seeing her tense attitude, he quickly told her he was just joking, but she didn't listen and left. Ji-woon drives to find Ha-won. He didn't expect her to be angry with his joke, and she left her bag in his car. While walking, she saw Ha-won walking along the road. Ji-woon stopped the car and told her to get in the car. Ha-won was very happy but pretended to be angry and turned away. I thought you wanted me to take the bus or subway home myself, but why are you still here? Ji-woon was amused by her attitude but still wanted to tease. He asked her if she had money, then raised her bag and waved it. In the end, Ji-woon had to get out of the car, open the door and speak loudly before Ha-won would get in the car. He took her for a walk around the street. The fresh air and beautiful scenery made her happily reach out her arms to catch the wind. Over here, the idiot Hyunmin is hanging out with his friends. Everyone wondered why this guy suddenly became so aggressive. Suddenly the phone rang and it was Ji, but he didn't listen and told his friend to turn it off. On this side, the couple Ji Ha-won and Ji-woon are happily talking and playing on the top of the mountain. Suddenly Ji-woon received a phone call from Ji, saying that she really needs him now, so please come here with her quickly. After hearing that, his attitude turned 180 degrees and he told Ha-won to go home quickly because he was busy. He makes an excuse to go to Ji. It's true that men are so hateful. Ha-won sitting in the car also understood the story. She sadly told Ji-woon to let me go down here and quickly go to Ji's place. It's okay, I'm fine. But actually our Ha-won is not okay at all. After getting off the bus, she took a deep breath and then sadly took the bus home. Sitting in the car at this time, her emotions were very mixed and tears kept falling. I really love our princess Ha-won. Meanwhile, Ji-woon also came to meet the beauty Ji. Ji cried and complained that someone from the court came to her house and now the house has been auctioned off and her father was even taken in for questioning by the prosecution. Now she doesn't know what to do. After that, she looked weak and hugged Ji-woon to receive sympathy. At this time, Hyunmin was at home playing games and also received news that Youngshin Construction Company had gone bankrupt. That's Ji's father's company. He panicked and was about to run out when he suddenly saw Ha-won coming towards the door. The two were awkwardly arguing back and forth when suddenly Ha-won drove Ji home and said that from now on she would temporarily stay here with us. With the look on Ji's face, right now she probably has a great ambition in her heart to be the wife of Kong Group. Then Ha-won reluctantly brought Ji to stay in the same room. But Ji accidentally confided to Ha-won that she was happy to always have Ji-woon by her side. Just now, she was the only one feeling very scared. Luckily, Ji-woon arrived in time. Whenever there is an incident, the first person to come to her side is always Ji-woon. Those words have hurt Ha-won. While Ha-won was returning to the forest station, Ji-woon walked in and asked her in a dazed way. When did you get home? Did you take the bus? Was there a traffic jam? I'm just curious to know if you got home safely. Ha-won heard those stupid questions and immediately became angry and kicked him in the face. Of course I'm safe, that's why I'm standing here. Then he was even more relieved when he asked Ha-won to take care of Ji for him. I'm really going crazy. If it were me, I would have run over and kicked my butt several times. Always only care about Ji without even thinking about the feelings of our Cinderella. The next morning, when Ha-won woke up, she was very surprised and asked the maid, I wonder why the villa is so quiet today. She said that the first morning after Ms. Ji moved here, everything was upside down. First is Seo Woo. In the morning, he fell asleep and walked out of the room looking messy and not neat and handsome like in the rehearsal days. Every day it's okay, but today there's beauty Ji. Hyunmin encountered another incident. When the maid was cleaning in the living room, immediately picked up Hyunmin's pink briefs and asked if these were his boss's pants, making Hyunmin embarrassed and not knowing where to hide her face. After Ji-woon exercised and ran around the Hanun Songhi villa, Ji enthusiastically ran back to take care of her like a newlywed couple. The maid stood behind and witnessed everything and was so surprised that she gasped. It's really so ridiculous. Why has this villa changed so rapidly? And it's all because of one girl, it's so shocking. Ha-won explained to the maid that it was like that when she first arrived. When I moved in with my 3 sons, they kept their distance from me. But that time was not like now. Before or after I came here, you guys still haven't changed like this. But anyway, now she knows that Master Ji-woon is extremely gentle towards women. It's true, Park Hae-ji looks so beautiful but she's as pretty as a doll. Like another person was caught looking like he just woke up and his underwear was seen when standing in front of Hae-ji. You guys must be so embarrassed, ha ha ha. After returning to Ha's room, Ha-won angrily shouted that all men are the same and only care about women's faces and bodies. Suddenly Ha-won saw books on the table titled Queen and Charisma. It says your unique charm will attract the person whose fate has been determined for you. After reading, she looked into the mirror and carefully examined her face. Ha-won confidently said yes, she also has her own charm, and then immediately ran to the dressing table. For the first time, she touched accessories like earrings or hairbands. Not only that, she also tries to change her dressing style with many outfits. Wearing makeup, she walked out of the room in a gorgeous dress, making the youngest boy so surprised that he dropped the TV remote he was holding in his hand. Just because today Ha-won was so beautiful and different from usual, when he saw it, he excitedly called his brothers out to admire it with him. Princess Ha-won, dressed for the first time, shyly ran into the room. Meanwhile, Ji-woon is standing in the warehouse thinking about the times Ha-won avoided him and got angry with him. He immediately guessed that she was still angry with him. Meanwhile, Hae-ji went to the police station to ask to see her father for a moment, but the police chief did not agree and invited her home. Hae-ji was sad and gloomy all day. Hyunmin took advantage of all his connections to help Hae-ji's father handle this corruption case. His friend's father was the superior of the judge in Hae-ji's father's case, so he could speak for her father. After returning home, Hyunmin immediately gave Hae-ji the letter her father wrote to her while in prison. Hae-ji was surprised, but is there anything this guy can't do? There's no need to thank me, but I'm doing this because last time you called and I couldn't hear you, so I feel sorry for you. Thinking that Hae-ji would be happy, but she bluntly said that next time he wouldn't need to do that. She didn't feel comfortable with him helping. After that, Hae-ji sadly left even though Hyunmin was about to give her a gift. So he had to run into Ji-woon's room, remembering that he took Hae-ji to get the gift. The next morning when she got there, Hae-ji was extremely happy because there were all the most wonderful and meaningful things in her life. Those are the Maid tools of a fashion designer. Hae-ji was happy and Ji-woon was shy, not knowing if he should tell her the truth. After returning home, Ji-woon immediately went into Hyunmin's room and said he did exactly what Hyunmin told him to do. But he didn't understand why Hyunmin didn't directly give it to Hae-ji. He then said that next time he wouldn't help Hyunmin do such things anymore. However, Hyunmin still has to ask Ji-woon to take care of Hae-ji a lot because Ji-woon has no reason to refuse. And Hyunmin has no qualifications at all. Hyunmin is only good at hurting Hae-ji but doesn't know how to comfort her. Ha-won is walking alone around the Hanun villa. As she walked, she mumbled idly that I hope the two of you will have a wonderful relationship. Ji-woon suddenly appeared like a Buddha and asked Ha-won if he was jealous because he cared about Hae-ji, right? He then apologized to her for leaving her alone. Finally, he asked her to go out again someday to get some fresh air. Hearing that, Ha-won blushed shyly and pretended to pretend, but in her heart she was now so happy. When she returned to her room, Hae-ji announced to Ha-won that she wanted to start a new relationship with Ji-woon. Hearing this, Ha-won just stood still for 5 seconds and was completely shocked. Next, I have a fun story for you guys. When the president's wife went to Ha-won's bitch shop to get a massage, the bitch's cheeky and flirtatious mouth made her angry. She jumped up late at night and ran down to report to the resort manager and asked the manager to fire her. It's true that retribution spares no one. When she got home, she was extremely angry. She cried like her mother-in-law had just passed away yesterday. In the end, both mother and child cried like they had never cried before. What a cruel woman. This party was at Hanun's villa when Hae-ji had just washed her hair and walked out of the room. But because her clothes were wet and not yet dry, she took Ha-won's clothes to wear temporarily. Hyunmin saw Hae-ji and thought it was Ha-won, so he came closer and hugged her from behind like what he often did with Ha-won. When the two realized the problem, they quickly walked away from each other. Hyunmin was still bewildered, not knowing what was going on. And Hae-ji was extremely angry because of Hyunmin's extremely ungrateful actions. At this moment, a figure of a man wearing a very strange hat suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The maid told Ha-won that her father was currently here. She was happy because she thought it was her adoptive father who had come to visit. But not before her eyes was a man who claimed to be named Young-jin, who once opened a martial arts class with her mother. After that, he asked her if her mother had never mentioned her father to her before. After knowing the whole truth, Ha-won ran outside. It seems that this father is not decent or kind. He probably never came back to visit his daughter for a long time, but now he sees that Ha-won is well fed and clothed and is loved by the group's chairman, so he plans to return here to find his daughter to take advantage of his wealth. What a coward. At this time, young Master Ji-woon had just arrived home. He also just heard from the maid that someone came here and claimed to be Ha-won's father. But she didn't seem happy, so she cried and left somewhere. At this time, Ha-won walked in the cold night and remembered the words he said to her. She was hurt and cried loudly. After hearing the news, Ji-woon was extremely worried and drove everywhere to look for Ha-won. Ha-won is at church now. Looking at the box for her mother's remains, she remembered the man who appeared from nowhere and claimed to be her withdrawn father. Remembering the person who raised her once gave her a strong turn-off and said she shouldn't raise another child for her. She looked at her mother's photo and said to herself, that's not true, please tell me that's not true. Then she helplessly hugged her pillow and cried. After learning about Ji-woon, he quickly drove over. Seeing her like that made him very sad. Ha-won was about to ask him why he was here, but he said in advance that he was worried about her and that he was worried she would cry alone or be in pain. Ha-won said she was fine, she just came to visit her mother for a bit. Suddenly Ji-woon hugged her and said, no need to say anything else, cry as much as you want, I'll be here with you. Hearing that, Ha-won was devastated. Emotions that have been suppressed for so long just turn into tears that flow out. Inside the villa, Han's maid was explaining that someone had come here claiming to be Ha-won's father, so she let him in. Ha-won tells Ji-woon that she suddenly has two funny dads. Hearing that, Ji-woon just said that a year ago Jun-sung suddenly came to see me, he said I was the grandson of the group's chairman. Thank you, and my real name is Kang Ji-woon, but I have never met this father and I never heard my mother talk about him. He thought his feelings back then were similar to hers now, so he could understand how shocked and confused this made Ha-won. Two people with similar fates and lives sat down to talk, seemingly relieved of the burden in their hearts. The next morning, Ha-won received a call from the priest knowing that she had to pay the fee twice this month, which surprised her. It was even more surprising to learn that the person who helped her pay the fee was the person claiming to be her father. While confused, Seo-woo called her out. Turns out he cooked noodles for her, then watched Ha-won eat and felt worried. He said that she was always the one trying to solve his family's problems, but he felt like we couldn't do anything for her. Ha-won tells him that she was fine yesterday because Ji-woon came. Ji-woon always chases her away, but deep down he is probably a kind person. Also, the best star Seo-woo even made me breakfast, and working at Han Villa is really worth it. When Ha-won finished eating and went out, he saw Hein-min facing the wall, not knowing what to do. Seeing her appear from behind, I was startled. Are you making fun of her for eating? Of course she's not the type to starve herself. It seemed like Seo-woo was very worried about you, so I told him you were very strong. Seeing the uniform on the table, Hein-min remembered the moment he mistook her for Hai-ji. He told me never to wear that uniform next time because it looked so messy, then left. Ji-woon met someone who claimed to be Ha-won's father. He took him to a bar to talk privately. After hearing a few words from him, Ji-woon gave him some money and told him to buy clothes and food. He also gave him his phone number and said if there was any problem and needed help, please call him. On this side, Jun-sung discovered that the chairman's wife was meeting privately with his lawyer. He brought a copy of the will to her and promised to meet again after she finished reading it. After leaving there, Jun-sung came to question that it was only for money that she pretended not to know her son after 10 years of separation. She did not hesitate to say she did everything for Jun-sung. Is Jun-sung still planning to take care of that bunch of family members after Chairman Kang passed away? Jun-sung told his mother directly to stop being hypocritical. She had already left him, so she should never come back to look for him. If she wanted to return to his life, then don't use this method, then left. Ha-won called his father and said that if they were free, let's go eat together. At this time, he took all the money Ji-woon gave him to play games but still pretended to say that he was at work, making her feel very sorry. After arriving, he only focused on the food on the table. When he heard Ha-won ask, he heard that his uncle had paid a fee to have his mother's remains at home to celebrate the ceremony, so he immediately pretended to sincerely say that was what he should do. There are things she couldn't possibly know. The two studied at the same university and opened taekwondo classes together, but realized their feelings for each other when it was too late. Ha-won asked why he didn't come to find her until now. He immediately replied that his apartment was on fire and he lost his martial arts class. At that time, he was deeply in debt and had to live a very miserable life. He waited until the economic situation stabilized before he dared to look for his daughter. However, after listening to him explain everything, Ha-won immediately stood up and said he had to go and would come back in a while. After Ha-won left, he said to himself that he hadn't even mentioned money. Ha-won went to the clothing store to buy him some new clothes, but when he returned, she saw him secretly looking through her bag. After returning to my place, I asked him if he was still having financial difficulties. Hearing that, Young-jin was as happy as finding gold. He quickly told her how miserable he was and even shamelessly opened his mouth to ask her for money. When he heard Ha-won say she didn't have that much money, he told her to go ask Chairman Kang's nephew. She asked him how he knew Ji-woon, but he frankly replied that when he came to the villa to look for her, he accidentally met him. I think he thinks you're very special, and probably because he's rich, he's very generous. He even gave me money so my baby could eat well. Upon hearing that, she became angry and left. Ha-won returned to meet Ji-woon and immediately asked if he pitied her. He told me his story a year ago and said we were in the same situation, so I thought we had to endure the same pain, but I was probably wrong. I didn't suddenly win the lottery like you, and I can't complain about this situation. For me, having to overcome fate every day is miserable enough, so why do you make me feel worse? She told him to stop meddling in her personal matters and left. Then, Ji-woon remembered when her father called him and said he wanted to rent an apartment in Seowu, but because Ha-won was shy, he said he would help. At this point, he realized he had been tricked by him, so he was extremely angry. He went to where he worked and saw that he was thirsting for everyone's water. Did you even hear them asking where he got the money? He told them that I had just found a generous sponsor, which made Ji-woon very angry after hearing that. At this time, Hyun-min was sitting remembering his childhood memories with the Hazy brothers. He remembered that just because he was playing with him, her brother was hit by a car, causing him a lot of trouble. On Ha-won's side, she just withdrew all her savings to give to her father. He was both surprised and happy and asked if she had received all the rent money, but she replied no. This is the money you paid to the house to celebrate the ceremony and I will give it back to you. I have no reason to accept this money from you. You know, I can't recognize you as my father. When he asked her if she thought he was lying, Ji-woon arrived. He placed an envelope on the table containing the assessment of Ha-won's relatives and him, but while he was hesitant to look at it, Ha-won grabbed it and tore it up. Then she told him that she didn't need to watch because she believed her mother would never let her love a man like this. Then she turned around and told him that if you need money, you're looking for the wrong person because I don't have money, I'm just a part-time worker there, so we have no reason to meet again. When she turned to leave, he suddenly said that he had no other choice. If it weren't for the fire in the apartment, his life wouldn't have been completely ruined like this. Hearing that, Ha-won turned around and asked if his life had been completely ruined. I know that not every day someone loses their life like your mother. I thought about how your life would become after that day, but even so, you never thought your life would be ruined. The only person who ruined my life was me. After speaking, Ha-won turned and left. Ji-woon saw that and followed her. Seo-woo is being scolded by his manager because he is caught up in dating rumors. The manager asked him if he was really dating. Without thinking, Seo-woo replied that there was no time to do such things. The manager said that looking back, it's strange that the first love you mentioned on the radio was real, right? But Seo-woo just said that he was out. The manager still didn't believe it, so he told him to be careful. Over here, Haiji is driving because the idiot Hyun-min is on the mend and drinking again. I don't know when they can only drive straight like this, when will they get home? And Ji-woon is taking Ha-won to a peaceful place with charming scenery to grieve. The two of them walked together on the grass field enjoying the fresh air. After that, Ji-woon gave her a box saying that this was a gift from them. Iron wall, but when she opened it, she saw nothing and turned back to ask. He said it was my heart, but she thought he was teasing her so she left first. He said that on White Day, he bought candy to give her but it was all melted. It's not Haiji but she who wins his heart. That cruel confession made her feel confused and stand still. Ji-woon walked quickly and placed a kiss on her lips. Ha-won also wrapped her arms around him. The two continued to define their relationship in a dreamy and beautiful setting. On the way home, the two held hands tightly. Suddenly Ha-won asked Ji-woon if they had to keep their distance when they got home. Ji-woon bluntly replied why should they keep their distance when they didn't do anything wrong. Ha-won's phone suddenly rang and her best friend called. Jia-dong asked Ha-won why he dated Seo-woo without telling her, making Ha-won feel extremely strange. She quickly went online and found out that Seo-woo's recent song was written about her. Ji-woon saw it and immediately became jealous. Just after confirming their relationship, she got caught up in such a scandal. Don't know who posted this. It's true that cruel people often live innocent lives. Ha-won explains that it's not like that, but Ji-woon is angry. You said it seems like Ha-won and Seo-woo are very close, right? Looking at that photo, the two of them look like they are in love. While Ji-woon was bursting with jealousy, Ha-won was angry that he had to keep the fact that they were dating a secret, making him so angry that he burst out laughing. As soon as she got home, she saw that Grandpa Kong had been waiting for her for a long time. He told Ha-won to sit down and talk slowly. In the end, what are you guys doing? Why isn't Hyunmin that's you? Seo-woo quickly explained that he said it wasn't true. Ha-won also said it was just a misunderstanding. Grandpa Kong was so angry that he asked them if they were planning to trick him. Three mouths explained until they were foaming at the mouth to calm Grandpa Kong. He said our agreement when he let you live here was that you couldn't date any of the three of them. If she violates it, she will have to leave and not be able to see the people living here again. He said that it's not because he lives in this house with his grandchildren that Ha-won is like the people here. This statement officially angered Ji-woon. He criticized his grandfather saying that for someone like him who uses money to buy people, it's nothing. Relatives also use it for business purposes, so if you love someone who doesn't suit you, you'll feel annoyed and then go back to your room. While Ji-woon was lying in her secret room, Ha-won came. She teased him but he was still angry so he deliberately ignored her. He asked how could she sign such a ridiculous contract. If we were found out, would you never see me again? She said it wasn't like that because at that time I didn't know we would be like this. I helplessly say that you are always good at making me worry. Right now I just want to focus on our feelings, but because of the legal contracts, everything is being lied to. She says do you think how I felt when you and Haiji got married like that? In the end, she angrily left and he could only stubbornly laugh. When Chairman Kang's wife drove out, Jun-sung also followed. He couldn't understand why she bought so many children's clothes. Turns out it was to visit the children at the blind orphanage. After talking to the camp manager, he learned that she often comes here. She lost her son when she was young, so she wanted to let the children here feel the love that she couldn't give her son. On the way home, Jun-sung's mind was full of the words of the youth camp manager. Hyun-min was walking around the yard when he saw Hae-ji going to Ji-woon's secret room. When he returned, she immediately said she was just there to pack things. He told her to leave it alone for now because she had no place to put her things, but she refused and apologized to him. He told her that he and Ha-won were dating and that Hyun-min found these things for her and then asked him to take her to the warehouse. Hyun-min is really worried about Hae-ji. Ha-won was about to go find Ji-woon when she saw him and Hae-ji together again, making her jealous. She saw that Ji-woon was really gentle with Hae-ji but thought that she and he were not really compatible. But not knowing what she was thinking, she opened her phone to see how compatible she and Ji-woon were, then smiled to herself. While watching, Ji-woon walked in and asked her what she was doing and said that there were a few things she couldn't tell her. About how I treated you poorly when you first moved in, I'm sorry. Hearing that, she laughed loudly and asked him to say it again. Ji-woon had to speak louder and asked if he was sorry. Then he took her to the kitchen and cooked for her to eat. He said from now on he will try to cook because his girlfriend likes to eat. Hearing that, Ha-won laughed and ran to help him. Ji-woon hugged her from behind, then secretly kissed her and ran away. After cooking, the two sat down to eat together, but while Seo-woo came home, Ha-won pushed him under the table. At this moment, Ji-woon just wanted to punch Seo-woo for daring to flirt with Ha-won. While stopping the car in the middle of the road, Ha-won's adoptive father suddenly received a blackmail phone call because that person had found Young-jin. He felt extremely confused. He asked again as the other person said he sent the information via text message but couldn't meet him, but his wife had already received it. He went to where Young-jin was working and asked if father and son had not seen each other for a long time and had a good time. Young-jin asked again, "Do you really think that Ha-won is my daughter? Why are you wasting your time on such nonsense? There is nothing between me and her mother." Hearing this, Ha-won's father felt very confused. He said that when he was away at work, the two of them were busy dating. Says it's nothing, so why is Ha-won's mother gone in his house? He explained that she only came because of a problem at the dojo, but he didn't believe her. He assumed that the two of them planned to run away together, but Ha-won's mother died, so he ran away alone. After learning the truth, Ha-won's father regretted what he had done. Only blind jealousy leads to such an outcome. When Ha-won and Ji-woon went to the warehouse to meet, she asked why he hated his grandfather so much. He told her that his mother was just an ordinary woman who wondered how she met his father. Mom never mentioned to him about his dad, so they probably didn't break up peacefully. Ha-won advised him not to sit here wondering but to talk clearly with the chairman. While the two were talking to each other, Ha-won received a phone call from her father, which made her very happy. He asked if the car was so messy that it no longer smelled like gasoline, but Ha-won said he really liked it because it was his father's smell. Dad is so cool to be able to drive such a big truck everywhere. He apologized to her for the misunderstanding during the past time, but Ha-won was not angry with him and said that she trusted her mother. She also knew that he trusted her very much because it had been so long, but he still did not go to check and kept looking for Young-jin. Even when he said Ha-won was not his biological daughter, she still respected him. After confiding, the father and son felt much more comfortable. He told Ha-won to give him a little more time to see if the current house became a real family. After returning home, he asked his wife if she had met Young-jin, but she was hesitant to answer. He shouted angrily, making her afraid to tell the whole truth. He said Ha-won was not Young-jin's child but his biological daughter, causing mother and daughter to widen their eyes in surprise. He warned the two people to tell the truth about what they had done to her before, which made mother and daughter so scared that they had to kneel on the ground and apologize. Then he chased the two people into the room where Ha-won had previously lived, causing them to cry in fear. Over here, Hyun-min is looking at the calendar for Hae-ji's upcoming birthday. He remembered the days when we first met when we were young and he brought a gift for Hae-ji, but he didn't bring it to Hae-ji, so she burst into tears. He said that he gave Hae-ji a gift because today is her birthday. She said that today is also my birthday. It turned out that the two were twins, so they had the same birthday. He said that he would give her a makeup gift for her next birthday as an apology for forgetting this time. Hyun-min intended to invite Hae-ji to her birthday, but she said she already had a date, making him feel shy. When Ha-won and Ji-woon were meeting on the street, they were caught by Chairman Kang, making him very angry. Not only that, even Seo-woo saw it, but because he wanted to help Ha-won, he hid his trembling. Seo-woo stood drinking coffee with Ha-won and noticed that she was in a very happy mood and asked about her. She asked Seo-woo that a friend of hers just went on a date and didn't know what to buy her boyfriend, so she asked for his opinion. Seo-woo said that men actually don't need gifts as long as she's by their side. Suddenly, President Kang made an appointment to meet her. He said he felt very disappointed in Ha-won. "I trusted you so much, but you lied to me." She didn't know what to say and could only apologize, but he asked her in return what she was planning to do. He gave her two choices, but she could only choose one of them. She is forced to choose her future or Ji-woon's. He asked her to forget Ji-woon, forget this conversation and forget the time at Hanun's mansion, then left. If she can do it, he will give her everything he promised, which is college tuition and compensation for the work she has done. As for secretly dating Ji-woon, it's not impossible, but do you want a love that can't predict the future? I think I can see him for a few months or years. You already understand what you need to do. Hearing that, Ha-won cried silently and said goodbye to him before leaving. That made Chairman Kang remember how in the past he had treated Ji-woon's mother the same way. Over here, Ji-woon kept calling Ha-won but she didn't pick up. He was worried and couldn't sit still. He suddenly dropped the phone into the locked room. And inside to pick up the phone, he accidentally saw an album containing photos of his parents. That made Ji-woon very surprised and made him hate his grandfather even more. Chairman Kang discovered Jun-sung and his wife's secret. He had a heart attack and fainted. Ha-won is packing her luggage into a suitcase to leave. Suddenly she saw Ji-woon's gift and remembered the words he said to her. In the other room, Seo-woo also registered his name on the posters and wrote instructions for Ha-won on them. He planned to give them to her. Seo-woo remembered the memories of the two of them, remembering the words of encouragement that Ha-won once gave him in times of sadness and joy. In Ha-won's eyes, he is always the best artist. And the intelligent girl-hungry guy is now standing in the park, recalling the memories of him and Hei-ji when they were young. He once engaged her with a ring that was absolutely stunning. Ji-woon was driving along the road and suddenly trembled and called to report that his grandfather had passed out. At the same moment, everyone received a phone call informing them of Chairman Kang's health condition. But the first person to visit him was the little princess Ha-won. Hearing that he was unconscious, Ha-won rushed to the hospital to ask the nurse which room Chairman Kang was in. Currently, the chairman has been taken to the emergency recovery room. The lady suddenly came over and asked her the best nurse and doctor at the hospital was right now, so she could quickly call me. Ha-won thought it was her fault that the chairman fainted, so when she saw his wife, she bowed down to apologize and then killed her. She said that you disobeyed the chairman to secretly date Ji-woon. Perhaps the chairman, when he heard about it, was very angry and it turned out like that. I just met the president not long ago. If because of meeting me, the chairman started this matter, I would really regret it. After hearing Ha-won say that, the lady no longer thought it was her fault that the chairman fell unconscious but took the opportunity to blame Ha-won. How dare a girl like you say anything that would make the president suffer like this? Do you know what the chairman's condition is now? He is fighting liver cancer. If he don't get a liver transplant, all hope is lost. The only hope now is to find a suitable organ donor. So we're racing against time, you know. He just needed to try to be a little more embarrassed, but she had already stolen the little time he had there. We gave you food and accommodation, but you did this? Previously, the chairman had given Ha-won a condition that she had to choose the huge amount of money or choose Ji-woon. So, the lady threatened Ha-won and forced her to leave quietly without letting Ji-woon and the others know. She also made Ha-won forget that she had ever been here. If she does so, she will help Ha-won hide the fact that she made the chairman unconscious. Ha-won heard that and left. Ji-woon also promptly went to the hospital. The two passed each other without seeing each other. Then the lady approached Ji-woon again to make Ji-woon misunderstand Ha-won. She said Chairman Kang knew about his secret relationship with Ha-won. She said Ha-won is an unreasonable girl. The lady said she knew clearly what she wanted and would do everything to achieve her goal, but the chairman was also too strict. Seeing her so young forced her to choose between money and love. Ji-woon didn't seem to understand much, but she was told that Ha-won didn't answer the phone because he had received money from the chairman and left. Hearing that, Ji-woon angrily stood up and left immediately. The two from that world finally showed up. Jun-sung announced that only with a gone transplant surgery would Chairman Kang have hope of living, so he didn't dare tell you guys. Because he doesn't want to pressure you guys. Then the two gentlemen invited each other to the room of the best doctor in the hospital. He said that gone transplant surgery is also very difficult for the donor and that even if he has prepared for this, the surgery cannot be performed if the two sides are not completely compatible. Leaving the doctor's room, the two brothers told each other that they were very worried about their grandfather's surgery. It seems that the cheetahs of that time have become much more mature. At this moment, at the mansion, Hoon Ji-woon promptly stopped Ha-won from leaving. Ha-won justified his absent-minded departure with incomprehensible statements. She says she is done here. Perhaps it was because she had mistakenly thought that she had become Cinderella when someone like Ji-woon said he liked her. But actually, she just came here to work more. When she was kicked out of her house and had nowhere to go, the president provided her with food, accommodation, and a very high salary. Therefore, after completing the task she had to leave immediately. Hearing that, Ji-woon angrily yelled at Ha-won. Don't say anything like that again, it's really hard to hear. But in the end, our princess Ha-won still decided to leave this mansion. Ha-won walked down the street while crying. She remembered the memories when the two of them had fun together and Ji-woon's words and care for her. Even though Hanan was far away, she still hoped he would run up and hug her from behind. But there was no one behind. It seems like what my daughter said that he left me to let me go had the complete opposite meaning. Over here, the lady called Jun-sung up. She is Jun-sung's biological mother. She is truly a woman with great ambition. After learning that Chairman Kong did not know when he would wake up, she made a plan to bring Jun-sung, also her son, to the leadership of Hanun Group. But after working for Chairman Jun-sung for a long time, he saw Chairman Kong as a respected father. When he heard his mother say that, he was not happy at all. His mother was always scheming to gain power. Ha-won now walks to his mother's grave. In front of her mother's portrait, Ha-won expressed her deep regret for causing Chairman Kong to have an accident. She is extremely worried and now she doesn't know what to do right. At this moment, Jun-sung also remembered his mother and picked up her photo to see. On the photo is written a place called Island in the forest. He had a premonition of something like a heart calling. When arriving here, Jun-sung received a cordial welcome from the owner of this cafe. He said that many people have come back here to look for scrapbooks that they once wrote like you, so I saw it and knew it. Most people come here because of a breakup. What about you? Jun then showed the shop owner an old photo. The woman in the photo is Jun's mother, who has come here to take photos since 1995. The shop owner told him to wait a moment and not go anywhere. Then he brought out a box and said that these were all the scrapbooks from 1995, so you could look to see if there were any clues. When he opened it, Jun accidentally read a scrapbook that was a letter from his father. He said he would never let the person he loved leave him. Next is my mother's guest book. She wrote thanking me for finding you. I'm sorry for running away, but I'm scared of everything. When he read these notes, his intuition told him that these were indeed his parents. So he immediately called the shop owner and said he wanted to continue reading the 1996 guest book. After rummaging through the pile of yellow paper in the box, he found the guest notes his parents wrote to each other. His mother told her husband that she still comes here often in the hope that one day she will accidentally meet the person she loves again. She named their son Jun and he really looks like his father. Every time she comes here, she thinks of Ji-woon's father. She felt that it was okay for her not to have a husband, but she found it too difficult to leave her children without a father. Reading the guest book of Ji-woon's parents made me emotional. At this time, the doctor informed young Master Hyunmin that he could not contact Ha-won, because before, Ha-won said that if possible, she would also like to donate to President Kong Lin. She went to see the doctor right after President Kong was hospitalized. The restaurant also informed Hyunmin that the president dropped this when he was taken to the hospital. Luckily the restaurant picked it up. At that time, they intended to give it to Secretary Jun-sung, but he suddenly disappeared. After hearing these words, Hyunmin also thought something was wrong. He quickly went to the company to look for Jun-sung, but the employee informed him that Jun-sung did not come to the company today. Jun-sung asked for leave to take his wife to the hospital to visit the chairman. Hyunmin called Secretary Jun-sung again, but he lied that he was at the company. This makes Hyunmin half suspecting that Jun-sung was involved in his grandfather's unconsciousness. Currently the secretary is sitting at the cafe with his mother. She gave Jun-sung a set of documents confirming the share transfer. As long as you sign this, all of her shares will be transferred to your name. Ha-won also returned to doing the job she loved, working part-time at her old coffee shop. Suddenly her father came to the restaurant to visit her. He is very worried about Ha-won. He believes that the work she does will greatly affect her, because she has to spend too much time with people with very different backgrounds. He then tells Ha-won a very important truth. Ha-won originally thought that the ring she had been wearing for so long was a relic her mother wanted to leave her, but in fact it belonged to someone else. Ha-won's mother died because she tried to go back and save the woman living in the apartment next door. The woman wanted her son to keep the ring, so she gave it to Ha-won's mother. Fortunately, her family's misunderstanding has been resolved. Because of that ring, for a long time, Dad misunderstood and resented Ha-won's mother. After that, artist Seo Woo also went to Ha-won's place to work part-time. He informs Ha-won that she is also not suitable for a liver transplant for Chairman Khan. The only chance now is only Ji-woon. But they can't contact Ji-woon. Seo Woo tried his best to leave Ha-won alone because only she could call Ji-woon back. It's true that only Ha-won knows where he is right now. She immediately went to the garage where he went to work the day before. Sure enough, this stubborn guy is here. Ha-won then gave Ji-woon the chairman's phone because there were a lot of things in there that he needed to see. She told him to turn on his phone and read the message because it was related to his father. Ha-won said that since finding Ji-woon, the president has texted his father every day. After that, she used all her words to convince Ji-woon to give him a liver transplant. Ji-woon finally stopped being stubborn. He immediately followed Ha-won back to his grandfather's side. On the other hand, the lady is holding an emergency meeting with shareholders at the company. She said that next she will introduce to all the shareholders present her son, who also holds a number of shares equivalent to the 5 main shareholders of the group. The lady clearly and confidently said that Secretary Jun-sung had the chairman's trust and complete entrustment of everything so he could easily take on the new leadership position of the group. After returning, Ji-woon did all the tests so that he could quickly perform liver transplant surgery for the chairman. He told Ha-won that when he first arrived at Ha-noon's mansion, grandfather said he didn't know his mother, but it turned out that wasn't true. It was he who kicked his mother out of that house, which made him very angry. He himself had planned to never see anyone in that villa again. But Ha-won was right that he had worked hard to come all the way here. And after the chairman woke up, he would ask him everything clearly. After he went through the final steps of testing, the two brothers still insisted on staying with their eldest brother Ji-woon because they did not feel secure. Everyone's sitting posture and head scratching were exactly the same. In the end, these three now consider each other as family. Afterwards, Dr. Park told Ji-woon that Chairman Kang often talked about him. The president often said he always felt sorry for him and was always worried about him. At this time, Hyunmin accidentally met his wife and secretary Jun-sung in the basement. He laughed and wondered why she had been so busy darkening her face since he collapsed. She apologized to Hyunmin. But he said the one you need to apologize to is the chairman. Right now he's unconscious, but if he knew, he'd be disappointed. The lady used the excuse that she was busy finding more perfect organ donors in case the worst case scenario happened. It doesn't make any sense. She was hoping something bad would happen to her grandfather. On this side, Ha-won and Ji-woon are walking together under the shade trees. Ha-won suddenly turned around and finished talking, then he took the things himself because she could no longer return to the Hanan villa. Ji-woon angrily asked her to go back there with him because no one would give her tasks now anyway, but she told him to stop being stubborn. Ji-woon angrily turned back and shouted at Ha-won, telling him that it's not like that and quickly clarifying what he said. Misunderstand that I also want to be by your side, don't you? You still don't understand what I'm thinking in my heart. Ha-won was angry and wanted to leave just because his lover shouted at him loudly, but it seemed that this stubborn guy was clever. Instead, Ji-woon immediately apologized to Ha-won for letting her leave alone that day. He didn't believe the words she said that day. On this side, artist Seo Woo asked his manager to cancel all performances in Seo Woo and other cities because his grandfather was seriously ill. Although these are all the biggest performances since Seo Woo was introduced to the public. The next day, at Seo Woo Hospital, Dr. Park was extremely happy to announce the test results. Ji-woon's liver is completely suitable for liver transplant surgery for the chairman. However, it is very dangerous because our Ji-woon is allergic to anesthetics. Doctors did not know how he would react to common anesthetics. The situation is very difficult to explain. The deepest situation is that he won't be able to wake up again. Therefore, the doctor advised Ji-woon to decide this for herself. After hearing the news that Ji-woon could have a liver transplant surgery for Chairman Seo Woo, he ran as fast as he could to the villa to tell everyone the news. Ji-woon has already received his results, he is a perfect match. At this time, Ha-won went into the hospital room to visit Chairman Kang. She brought with her a photo she took with the young masters during their first meal together. The lady suddenly walked in from somewhere. Once again Ha-won is threatened. She asked her when she planned to leave after the surgery was successful. The chairman would wake up soon. Ha-won says she will only stay until the day the chairman has surgery. After a successful surgery, she will leave. After knowing the date of the president's surgery, the lady told Jun-sung to hold a Congress meeting of the Provisional East that day. When the chairman wakes up, the surrounding appearance will change completely. Ji-woon's hospital room is currently being invaded by 3 people including the maid, Hyunmin and the talented artist Seo Woo. They tried their best to justify their outrageous actions. First, Hyunmin was worried that Ji-woon would be bored in the hospital room alone. Seo Woo also agreed with the above opinion. That's right, we came here to help Ji-woon feel less bored. In the end, what's the maid? She raised her eyebrows and argued that Ji-woon had an important surgery coming up so he really needed nourishment. But in the end, it was all taken back by Ha-won. After leaving, Hyunmin accidentally saw the chairman's lawyer. He stood outside the door and overheard that the lady wanted a lawyer to convene a Congress meeting of Dong to dismiss the chairman. Hyunmin immediately went to the company and ran straight into Secretary Jun-sung's room, grabbed him by the neck and threatened. Hyunmin affirms that he will show Jun-sung how he will protect what belongs to him. Hyunmin then took immediate action by opening a meeting between shareholders. He stated, "The reason I invited everyone here today is to protect this Hanum group. I guess everyone is still doubting what a person like me can do at this time. I also know that, but I am not incompetent enough to let the company my grandfather built and protected for 50 years fall into the hands of others. Furthermore, I am not so immature that I cannot see the effort that all of you sitting here have put in since the founding of this corporation. I know clearly how heavy this position is and I want to take on this noble responsibility." All shareholders were extremely satisfied with Hyunmin's sincere speech. I arrived at Hanun's mansion and all the conflicts between Hyunmin and Haiji were finally resolved. The two hugged each other and kissed passionately and romantically under the beautiful moonlight. And our couple Ji Ha-won and Ji-woon also escaped the hospital together to have a fun time before surgery. The day of the important shareholder meeting has arrived. Hyunmin is wearing a very cool suit. The topic of discussion at today's shareholder meeting is the dismissal of Chairman Kang, after which the voting will begin. At the same time, Chairman Kang and Master Ji-woon's surgery also began. While Ji-woon was in the operating room, Hyunmin won the shareholder meeting, successfully helping his grandfather retain Hanan Group. Why did the woman blame her son for doing that? His decision will cause both mother and son to fall into the abyss. After the shareholder meeting, Hyunmin rushed to the hospital. At this time, the doctor came out and said that the chairman's liver transplant surgery was very successful, but Ji-woon had a drug overdose. Luckily, nothing was more critical, but he still hadn't regained consciousness. Hyun-min questioned the doctor that when they examined his brother, he said there was no problem. Why is it like this now? The doctor had to tell the truth that Ji-woon was allergic to anesthetics. Before surgery, they warned him, but he still insisted on doing it. Ha-won couldn't believe his hands. She felt so heartbroken that she almost fell down, but luckily Hyun-min was there. After waking up, Chairman Kang felt very fond of Ji-woon. He quickly asked the doctor if his nephew would be okay. The doctor was about to tell the truth but saw Hyun-min signaling him, so he had to lie to the chairman. On this side, Ha-won took care of Ji-woon and never left her side. Seo-woo came to advise her to go home and rest, but she was still reluctant to leave the person she loved. On the other hand, Jun-sung submitted his resignation to Chairman Kang and honestly said that his wife was actually his mother. "I apologize for all the mistakes my mother has made." Hearing that, Chairman Kang was so surprised that he didn't know what to say and just silently let him leave. Ha-won was cleaning Ji-woon's body when Hyun-min brought Chairman Kang over. The person he feels most sorry for is this grandchild. He then told his brother Hyun-min to let Ha-won take him to his room. Ha-won claims she doesn't care about the future or money and can repay everything. The president gave her as a reward as long as he lets her stay by Ji-woon's side. He warned her that if she couldn't take full responsibility for her feelings for Ji-woon, then don't talk about it at all. But when he saw with his own eyes how she cared for him, or when she silently shed tears, his heart moved. One day Soo-kyung and her daughter arranged to meet Ha-won, who said her father was at the police station. Because her father fell asleep while driving, he caused an accident. Her father was fine, but the other person was injured and is in the hospital. Ha-won was wandering alone on the street thinking about what Soo-kyung said when he suddenly received a phone call from the hospital. She hurriedly ran over but saw Hyun-min pushing the chairman in, making her remember what the chairman had said. She could only stand outside the door without daring to go inside. Seeing Ji-woon calling, she didn't dare listen because she decided to save her father. After being released, her father worriedly asked Ha-won where he got such a large amount of money, but she reassured her father. After Ha-won and her father got off the bus, she saw Ji-woon standing there waiting for her. He asked her why when he opened his eyes he didn't see her there. He said he missed her like crazy, but she didn't dare turn around to look at him. She could only say her mission was to take him to the hospital. That was also her last mission. What she said made Ji-woon very sad, but for him to completely give up and ignore his bleeding heart, Ha-won still stubbornly said the words that made Ji-woon hate her. Hyun-min and Hae-ji are happily together. While Ji-woon was lounging alone, Seo-woo came over and worried about him because he hadn't been able to contact Ha-won. But he said she didn't want to see him anymore, making Seo-woo very confused. Seo-woo doesn't understand why Ha-won is so devoted to taking care of someone she doesn't want to meet. At first, Ji-woon thought that Ha-won did it because of his grandfather, but now he's not sure. If she feels miserable when she is with him, he will let him go. Hearing that, Seo-woo told everything she heard Ha-won say. Perhaps it was because of Ji-woon that she had to leave like that. After hearing advice from Seo-woo, he seemed to realize something and went to find his grandfather. Ji-woon suddenly asked if he had ever done the same thing to his mother. At that time, he also used my father's future to threaten my mother. If he hadn't done so, then things would have been completely different. In the end, he knelt down and begged him. If Ha-won wasn't by his side, he wouldn't be able to breathe. Please make it right for us. Seeing his nephew so depressed and thinking about what Ha-won went through, he had to agree. After so many things that happened, Soo-kyung and Yoona had a completely different attitude towards Ha-won. That day while eating with Ha-won's family, he suddenly received a phone call from Chairman Kang to meet. He said that everyone was worried about her because she left without saying anything. In the end, he told her to get to know Ji-woon because he allowed it. He also said that Ji-woon missed her very much. Ha-won suddenly said, "You were right that I really need money and I can't choose Ji-woon over money. I'm the one who left Ji-woon, not for anyone else, it was my own choice." He said that the 3 months he promised had not yet passed and she could return anytime she wanted, which made Ha-won so moved that she cried. When talking to Ji-woon, his grandfather gave his father's relics and told him to give it to the person he loved. Actually, there were 2 rings of his father and mother, but his mother's ring was lost. When seeing the ring, Ji-woon immediately remembered the ring on Ha-won's neck. He remembered Ha-won saying it was her mother's relic. Sitting in the car, Ji-woon looked at her father's ring, then called the victim's family association to learn about the ring. But he was surprised because someone was looking for him. The person who came to see him was none other than Ha-won's father. He said Ha-won's mother also died in that accident because she tried to save her neighbors. She asked Ha-won's mother to give the ring to her son, but unfortunately her mother did not survive. Ha-won thought it was her mother's relic, so she always wore it around her neck. After hearing Ha-won's father say the 2 of them held a funeral at the same hospital, Ji-woon seemed to remember something. Sitting in the car, he felt very happy. It turns out that he and Ha-won have known each other since they were children. At that time, he gave her a white rose and wiped away her tears. He gave Ji-woon his white headband, and she also gave him the white clip in her hair. They consider it a miracle for two people to recognize each other. At the end of the flashback, Ji-woon drove like he was flying to his lover's place where the girl he loved was. At this time, Ha-won received a phone call from his father and learned that he had returned the ring to its owner. From her father, she also knew that that person was Ji-woon. She also realized that Ji-woon was the love of her life, the person she entrusted all her faith and hope to. She and he both ran towards each other bravely, pursuing their love, not knowing whether it was fate or love. He gave her the white hairpin, and she also gave him the same headband as usual. Afterwards, Ji-woon put on her hands the treasure of her parents that proved their love. The two gave each other a passionate kiss as if officially confirming that they would never be apart again in this life. Seo-woo still continues his dream of being an idol. Hein-min came to find Jun-sung and advised him to return because Chairman Kong was still waiting for him, but he refused because he now had his own path. Chairman Kong also proposed to his wife again because he did not want to regret anything. Hein-min and Hai-ji also returned to visit their deceased relatives. Perhaps Hein-min was more comfortable when facing the truth because the depression in his heart was no longer there. Also at that place, Hein-min swore to love Hai-ji a lot on behalf of his brother. At the end of the movie, everyone gathered together at the picnic. But this time everyone was very happy and genuinely treated each other. After going through the kitchen, everyone has learned to appreciate each other more. A truly satisfying ending for everyone. So today's movie ends here. Thank you very much for your interest in following. If you find this video interesting, don't hesitate to leave me a like and subscribe so I can have more motivation to make more good videos. Now hello and see you in the next videos.